This part is probably going to be heard by some people while YouTube is figuring things out in its own end, but here we go. Guys, we are all the way live. We are all the way live. We are all the way live. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Break the Rules stream. I am your host, Lev Polyakov, LevPo on Twitter, and we have with us the great Doug TenNapel. Great to finally meet you, Doug, and also joining us is Graventus, and we're going to have a couple of more guests showing up real soon. Once again, for all new people, don't forget to subscribe to our channel right now. We are so close. You could see it right on the screen to 2,000 subs, and I think we're definitely going to make it today. And also go to patreon.com/breaktherules, and if you sign up as a $20 patron, you are going to get one of my father's exquisite wooden magnets. These are completely original. There is not one that's like the other. Look at this texture. I know, Doug, you cannot see the texture right now. I think you saw the tweet that I did about it.
I saw it. I love handcrafted stuff. I'm telling you, quit buying junk, guys. Buy handcrafted stuff.
Yes, exactly. And you could also get for $30 as well prints from the great Giovanni Panaccieri. You could see the process right now of making these beautiful Japanese woodblock prints. So there we go, guys. This is what you get if you become a patron. So, Doug, thank you so much for coming in. The first question that I want to ask you, I'm just going to go right into it, is how do you define creativity, the nature of creating something?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Lev. I appreciate it. Great to be on with you, Graventus. It's a big question, all right? So as far as I can tell, if I'm looking at my own creativity, it's not creating, from nothing. It's not ex nihilo, like these ideas. I've never put something down that just didn't reference something else. I don't even know if we're capable of doing that. So at best, it's a recreation or a recombination of things that we've already seen. And this is what I like about the physical arts. Whether if you're carving something or making a comic or doing a painting or writing music or whatever, we're not perfect analog beings. We can't perfectly represent anything. So this goes all the way back to Plato. Plato said there's such a thing as a perfect circle, but he's never seen one. So it's up there in the ideals. At best, and I have a web show on my YouTube channel based on that frustration called "You Can't Get There From Here." It's kind of dealing with the idea that we can never be perfect. So at best, our creations are kind of sad attempts at touching beauty, touching the ideals, touching wonder, perfection, and I just see us as being little imitators, what Tolkien called sub-creators. We're little imitators of God. He's a creator, and we're sub-creators. So of course we love building things, building walls, building houses, building civilizations, painting, drawing, writing music. Crafting magnets is just funner than, buying a pre-made magnet from the store. You make stuff. We're sub-creators. And so each of us have our own unique signature. Like I could spend my whole life trying to copy your signature. There's only so good at it I could get. Or I could spend my life trying to imitate you, and there's only so good I could get. Like you could run it through a computer, and a computer would be able to tell who the real you was, just by looking at the voice algorithm or the rhythm or whatever. So what we call that artist's signature is called our style. That's my style, is me recombining shapes and doing it my own way, in a way that no one else can copy it. And you'd do the same, and Picasso did the same, and Michelangelo did the same. We even look at the Bible, which was written by God, but you can look at the men who transcribed their words, and you can see their style of language and writing is different from each other. So the truth can be communicated, but there's still the artist's signature you cannot be removed from what you make. That's creativity to me.
That is a good answer. One thing that I want to add into this, you were asking before about what the Wim Hof method is, when I was talking about how it has helped me. And the Wim Hof
breathing technique.
Yes, the breathing technique. So For those who don't know, I've been doing the Wim Hof method for several years. What it involves is taking a really deep, big breaths in, about 30 or 40 of them. Then I stop breathing, although sometimes I don't stop. Sometimes what I do is I keep breathing in even more, like blowing myself up like a balloon. What ends up happening from that is that I get kind of like an electric shock, orgasmic sensation throughout my entire body. I go into a state that I would describe as dreamlike, where I remember something and then I instantly forget it, or I'm trying to grab onto it, but it's too far away now. And the other thing that ends up happening from that is I end up generating shapes in the, as people describe, the third eye. There is a white light right in the center. Sometimes it's in the form of a cross, in the form of a star, triangle made out of 3 other lights, DNA helix, and those are shapes that I could define like the 5-pointed star. It is an actual 5-pointed star right in the center. So if we are talking about the realm of perfection, I think that there is a tie, like an umbilical cord, that binds us together with something that we can't really reproduce in this world, but we still have a glimpse of it. So I'm curious if you've had any experience of the same, or if you would like to add anything to it, and same with Gravitas as well.
I've experienced the weirdest thing I've experienced on that level, which is hard for me to explain, and I don't know how well that overlaps with that, but I've had dreams, like semi-waking dreams. So it wasn't a deep sleep, but I had dreams where I'm looking through an artist's sketchbook or my own sketchbook, and I'm flipping through pages, right? And there are images going by. And they're things I could never create, yet I see them. So if a dream is just my mind rearranging furniture that's already there, how is it making these things that are way outside of my design and my skill ability, even to conceive, like weird stuff, way out there stuff? I just wonder where that comes from. So I'm not trying to make an argument for that it's supernatural. I'm saying I don't know. And what's weird is if I'm flipping through a sketchbook, right, the images are going by at such a rate that I can't imagine thinking about it and coming up with it that fast. Hundreds of pages. I can't explain that, right? Another way that sometimes I wonder is, am I not really seeing images, but my mind is telling me I'm seeing images? Like, wow, that's all stuff way outside of your creative ability. And it gives me the feeling as if I've seen something. And then, so it's almost like a memory implant or something,
It's
so
like,
that's the oddest thing that I regularly experience and just go, oh, where'd that come from?
I would love to bring this to Gravitas. Also, new people, please subscribe. And I do think that this sounds a lot like the concept of the noosphere, or the subconscious, where there are all these ideas that have already been created, and it's up to us to be vessels to them. Like someone like Nikola Tesla, for example, where I do believe that the brain is a receiver, and it's a really good one, but it's not a place where you can just take and dissect and remove the dreams and the ideas out of the brain and put them into a machine, which I think is the reason why, and I would love both of your answers to this, but the reason why with a lot of the transhumanist conversations that are happening right now, there is a fear of AI and humanity being reduced to the same level. Like in Saudi Arabia, they recently made this robot woman into a citizen, and good for her, but the question is, what happens when we, as human beings, start to be at the same level of the machines? What does humanity mean anymore? So I want to get into that as well, but Gravitas, what are your thoughts on some of these I wouldn't use the word supernatural. I think everything in life is supernatural, and we've gotten used to certain things being as they are because we just see them all the time. But let me know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think I would actually be as bold to directly call it supernatural. I think that's just part of what Doug was talking about earlier, the sort of divine inspiration, the subcreation, in which, being in the image of God, sort of like as creator of everything, that attribute sort of is what being made in the image of God is. And I think in the Old Testament, the first example of some being filled with the Holy Spirit was, I want to say it's like Bezalel, but it was a craftsman. It was someone creating like the Ark of the Covenant. And, I think that speaks volume, that kind of like the first, like recorded in the Old Testament as an example, someone being filled with the Spirit of God. They're creating this like artisan project. And I think that speaks a lot to sort of like what is creation, what is this artistic endeavor, sort of like the deeper understanding of sort of the inspiration behind it all.
Well, you have in mystery schools all the various examples of the tree of life, whether it's the Kabbalistic tree of life, whether it's the 7 chakras. I found out just from observation. In fact, I was doing a yoga class. The reason I'm kind of mellowed out right now is because I just came back from a yoga class outside. It's in New York. The weather is great. The fall leaves are everywhere, and it makes no sense why the weather is so good. But anyway, I did the class there, and then I added another thing to my repertoire, which is this idea of we are made in the image of God, but that could also be experienced in a fractal level. I always as an artist, I don't know if you've observed this or not, the eyes and the third eye is like the breasts and the heart, and the nose is like the diaphragm, and the mouth is like the stomach. I know in Bigfoot Bill, he has a mouth where the stomach is, thanks to his tentacled friend. So there is this fractalness I'm noticing, but also in terms of vibration, man, in terms of the vibration too, I'm noticing something interesting just today, where, for example, we have the sexual organs of giving and receiving. Men have a penis, women have a vagina, they have sex, they create new life, but that is an in and out breathing that's going on. Then we have the breath. We inhale and we exhale. Then we have the heart. The heart beats up and down, blood is circulating, and that's life. But then what I noticed from the meditation experiences is that after the breathing technique, sometimes I would lay my head down on the pillow, I would get this very beautiful tower of blue and purple with the DNA helix in the middle being created, kind of like a zoetrope, like trrrr, and this part would start vibrating like a small motor. And I just noticed, wait a minute, if I go from bottom to top, these things seem to be accelerating and getting faster, much like people talk about the colors, from red to purple. So I think that there is something here that various people are picking up through their own methods to show what I think people have realized for a long time. So I'm curious if you have anything to add to that. And I'm also going to be bringing in Chris Gassler, who is in the waiting room right now.
I read a book called Modern Physics, Ancient Faith by, I think his name is Stephen Barr, B-A-R-R. It's fantastic. But it's a kind of a creationist apologetic, but he talks about the fractalization of the distance between man and a molecule is the same distance in size between a molecule and an atom, and the subatomic. And if you expand man out, it goes man to the universe, is he's doing size comparisons. And he just thought it was very strange that from a physics standpoint, there's a rhythm to sizing that he thought gave evidence to the hand of at least an organized creator of some kind, that he was talking about a design inference, that by seeing design, that usually we credit design not to random, things firing off, but to a mind.
Now, where do you stand on iconoclasm? One thing that I notice is, just like Gravitas, he has that beautiful frame from Hieronymus Bach. And I'm a big fan of Bruegel. I think Bruegel and Bach, they're amazing artists. And by the way, I completely forgot to mention it. I also do animation, and I'll send you some of my stuff later on. But
awesome. I want to see it.
But
is it Bruegel or is it Bruegel? Because I've always pronounced him Bruegel.
I don't even know how your last name is pronounced properly. Is it TenNapel
or
TenNapel?
You're allowed. TenNapel, I don't care. But because I just did a comic about, I'm 100 pages into a comic that I couldn't finish for 10 years about a art thief, and he is being broken by trying to copy a Rubens Bruegel painting.
Interesting. But in those paintings, just like with something like, I don't know, Pokemon or any other creation where you're not necessarily just copying from life, like you copy those very realistic looking cows in Earthworm Jim. This
Sure.
is an area where you do, as a creator, take things into your own hands and create what I would say would be the equivalent of the DMT elves or
Yeah.
demons. And again, when I talk about demons, I'm not talking about horned entities. I'm talking about daimon. I'm talking about the inspiration that goes into people, the muses from ancient Greeks. I don't
Yeah.
think we can, like, I noticed that, and I really enjoyed Ratfist. I thought that was a great comic, but I noticed
Thank you.
that the tiki god there, the pagan tiki god, he did not like Jesus Christ, or at least he said that in one
Yeah.
of the panels. What I don't get here, though, is that if we're talking about things like Atman, the idea of like this universal oneness that we are all a part of, so are all these other gods, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, that kind of trinity. Like, they are gods who are also a part of this oneness, and they are just aspects of this oneness. So in that sense, I don't see why certain pagan gods would have to necessarily be opposed to this same idea that Jesus was talking about.
Yeah. They don't necessarily have to be, but they tend to be. And I have my own theory why, but in the case of that pagan tiki god, first of all, I love that guy. He's one of my favorite weird little characters. He's a space tiki. And talk about iconoclasm. So all Virgil was doing, even on his versions of demons, where they would put goat feet and horns on a being, he wasn't saying these are the facts as I see them. He was creating a kind of an abomination. He was trying to combine parts of impure things to make them look unnatural and out of order. That's all that a demon usually depicted as in the fine art of that period is trying to say. All they're trying to say is something's wrong and something's unnatural. And that was the best language they could do. I don't take the strict iconography of, obviously, of horns and pointy tails and things. I think those are things that we've projected into it. I do believe, I'm fine with the theory that all alien encounters could be demons, traditional biblical demons, because what you'd have is anytime that you saw a extra normal being that you couldn't explain, you would use the storytelling of your time to describe it. So if a demon showed up in the olden days, you'd say you'd use your Christian story to apply to it. And then in modernity, if you saw an extra normal being, you'd use your materialist philosophy of these are beings from beyond the stars in their crafts, and they're all atheists, and they don't have sex organs, and they all look the same, which is kind of a liberal utopian ideal.
Well, we also have a comment from Buff, great Buff, joining us in the chat. Welcome, Buff. Graventus, hit him with the gods are fallen angels because they accepted praise for themselves instead of God. And also we have a comment from Cha-Cha Shakalaka. Only demons I've encountered are politicians. Well said. And we also have Jules joining us. Jules, welcome, Jules.
Hello, Jules.
So, Graventus, take it away.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of touches on an underlying sort of like the root of sin being pride. And that's kind of the differentiation that I would make between sort of angels and demons. Sort of like, where is the praise being attributed to? We see in like Revelation or something where an angel appears and John falls down to worship him and he says, don't do that. As compared to, say, something that might directly demand worship. And I think you can kind of see that in human analogs as well. The person who, they create something great, marvelous, whatever it may be, and they attribute it, there's this humility they attribute it to, something else that, I don't know where I was inspired from, that I give all this credit to God or something. And someone who kind of takes it into themselves and, I am great. And I think, a lot of the times when people do that, you know, you see them eventually have this great fall. And so I think that kind of, I would see that as a good analog between, you know, comparing the sort of different spiritual forces using humans as an analogy.
Sure.
There is the possibility, I think, of there being life out there other than just on the planet Earth, unless, again, this was all set up just for this one area to experience the feeling of, oh, there's all this other stuff around us, so we're not alone. Maybe, I don't know. But I would say, though, again, back to the Hindus, they have the idea of the lokas, where you could be reborn in a different loka, in a different planet, whatever you want to call it. Mormons have a similar thing. And life could be better or worse there, depending on your circumstances. I would add to that a lot of more of the... how do I say it? More of the esoteric Jewish sects, they also believe in reincarnation. And for me, the idea is that when you have someone who is born without arms, without legs, or whatever, you know, just some really bad, debilitating conditions, like, what, that's it? That's the only chance I have to experience.
That's all you get.
That's all
Life's
I get.
a bitch.
Oh, man.
That's all you get.
See, I don't know about that. Oh, Chris, you want to...
Oh, I'm just saying that is a bummer if that is the only one you get, and you're just like that one dude who's just an arm.
Yeah, I mean, you have a very interesting approach to life that way, but at the same time, it's something that to me feels a little bit lacking, again, when we are talking about people who are so unfortunate as to have certain ways that they are not able to participate in life, which to me means that I think there are going to be other opportunities for us to try out different things and to learn from everything. I think this whole thing is a learning experience. And my only problem, I'd say, with any revealed religion, although again, I do respect everybody's views here, my own personal problem is that if we were living in some tribal society in an island and that was it, we didn't know whatever was beyond that island, our knowledge base would be constricted to that island. Much like with the ancient Egyptians, sure, their hieroglyphics had that funny-looking snake with those antennas and, you know, other things you would find in Egypt. They wouldn't have, I don't know, they wouldn't have a bear represented in their hieroglyphics just because that wasn't part of their whole thing. Much, right. I think in the same way, whatever we're going through right now, whether we are going into the Kali Yuga, the Age of Darkness, or whether we're headed to some kind of a revelation where Jesus would come back and we would go into the New Jerusalem, however that part would go, I'm not sure if it's the end with this planet, just because, like, I look out, there's so many other things going on. We're not at the center of the galaxy. I assume that towards the center of the galaxy, there will be other places that people would live in different lives. Again, it's just an assumption, but I'm curious what you would make of that if you would leave room for similar revelations that Jesus brought forth to have been administrated in however many different ways throughout existence itself.
Sure. For me, well, you talk about other lives and the unfairness of the unborn, you know, being born deformed or whatever. That is where karma comes from. The idea of there must be some form of fairness in another life because there's none here. Mm-hmm. I think there's a overlap there with Christianity, the idea that you will not find justice on this world. And so there must be justice in the afterlife. The idea that, because we're all trying to deal with the unfairness that we see all around us, you know, a deformed baby or a baby that just has only lived in excruciating pain and dies. And we all want a story to explain that. Ideally, we're looking for a true story, but we don't know, you know, until we get to the other side. So if we know anything, it would have to come from a divine revelation. The story would have to come from the other side and project back to us. So that's where you get the shamans, and that's where you get the Krishnas, and that's where you get the Christian prophets. I don't equate them all because that's where I put my skeptical hat on. But I think the problem between all world religions, which is why I don't accept them all as equal, is they contradict each other. So and you have to bend over backwards to keep them from contradicting each other. So where they contradict, at some point, one of us have to put a foot in a religion around the world, or even atheism, non-religion, and you have to judge all others as false. You can't accept all religions as equal because they say contradictory things. Like it would make you incoherent. So because I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus. Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No man comes to the Father by me. That is an exclusivist statement. You cannot get to the Father without me. That's a pretty, he threw it down. It's either true or false. Could be false, could be true. But I'm only saying that that's what he said. So you can't have that jive with Hinduism, which is, millions or hundreds of thousands of gods, including God being one of them, or Jesus being one of them, one of many. And those are contradictory things. And C.S. Lewis said, in the end, the world will boil down to two religions, Hinduism and Christianity, because Hinduism is the acceptance of all religions and Christianity is the rejection of all others. I can go a long way with a couple of religions because they believe in the one God. The claim of God, when he describes himself, is not I'm one of many. He says, I am the one of one. He doesn't say there's no other gods. He says, I'm the one that created all others. So that would be the three Judaic religions or Abrahamic would be Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Those philosophically are very different than Hinduism, let's say. I think those two are the two major religion worldviews of the world. There's either one God or many.
There is also a very interesting video that I recommend people watch after this, and don't forget to subscribe, by Robert Seffer, which...
and like the show, subscribe, and take this link and throw it out on Twitter that
Yes.
This is the only place on the internet talking about deep, fun things right now. All the rest of YouTube sucks right now.
I couldn't agree
it's
more.
a drain.
Doug. I couldn't agree more.
I can't agree more either. I'd rather be here than anywhere else in the world.
Oh, man, I appreciate it. So when it comes to something like, let's say, the Trinity with the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit,
Yeah.
Robert Seffer equates the Holy Spirit, which was presented a lot as a dove, to the idea of this feminine aspect, and it was also presented as a female in certain early iconography before I think things were more cemented in a particular dogma. So when it comes to something like the Holy Spirit, I see, again, going back to this idea of giving and receiving, which is found in the Kabbalah, the idea of that the Creator is an all-giving entity, and the idea is for human beings to transmute the need to always receive, because even if you love somebody, you're still receiving a good feeling from, all
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, so the idea is to
that could well be a spiritual thing.
Well, the interesting idea to me here is that when it comes to this transmutation and the things that we're dealing with right now in this cyclical world of birth and death and yada, 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 this animated life to me has always been equated with Kundalini, with Shakti that it's talked about in Hinduism. This idea of this overall energy spread around that is responsible for life, which again is not by itself, but in the non-dualistic view, it is something that emanates from one single thing. So if we're talking about all the other fellows around, if we're talking about Indra, if we're talking about who could be equated with Thor, I think, if we want to get really deep in the whole Nephilim thing. But anyway, we can equate all these different entities, all these different principles with archetypes. And the idea, I think, would be, for the Hindus, let's say, is that I want to live up to this particular archetype, so this is what I want to focus on. Much like in Islam, you would have the 99 names of God. I want to focus on a particular aspect. So even though there are contradictions, I think that a lot of these things do, just like we all wake up, go outside, I hope we do, and look up at the sun, and we could all agree there is a sun. I think that there is a particular structure, and I honestly don't, for me, being a skeptic on all of this, as crazy as I can get talking about Atlantis and all that, I still would say that we are, like Graham Hancock says, a species with amnesia. And there is so much more, like, I think we grasp onto things that are true, and we recognize them as being true, but there may be other things that, have not, gone through that well. Like, I wonder, if not for example, the Zoroastrians, would the Hebrews who were living at that time in Babylon, would they have been exposed to the dualist black and white Ahura Mazda versus Ahriman type way of looking at things with an end of the world conflict that would eventually come to pass? Like, they are taking something from Zoroastrianism as opposed to it all being part of one package. And that makes me
Well,
think,
we don't know who took what from who. I studied the Mazzaroth as it went through Babylon. So the Mazzaroth is the idea of God is written on the stars, and there were stories up there of the Virgin crushing the head of the snake. And then when you go through Babylon, suddenly you have a zodiac of this, you know, Virgo, the Virgin, with her foot on the serpent or whatever. I don't know that the zodiac predates the Hebrew Mazzaroth, because it all got mixed up in exile. You know, once they were living in Babylonian captivity, and the Babylonians had the greatest libraries in the world in that, they gleaned the knowledge from every culture. They would put it in their library. So we don't know where this stuff comes from. We only know that they were an aggregator they would dominate societies and just take them over and take their libraries. And you have the book of Daniel, where you have three prophets in Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refusing to eat the food sacrificed to idols and not bowing down to Nebuchadnezzar. And they demanded that they first learn all of the teaching of Babylon. So those prophets were given, they were experts in the greatest thoughts of the world. And I assume they were going up against Babylonian magicians who also were equal scholars. So I'm just saying that was a carefully curated, probably the world's most exhaustive library that ever existed. Back there.
The only problem may be that there had to be a library in the first place, going back to the idea of, various people back in the day who talked about, like, lamenting the ability to read versus the ability to store things in your brain. Socrates was one of those people where, like, again...
I'm thinking even going farther back than before written language.
Yeah, definitely.
You'd have ideas and it would be purely verbal. It wouldn't be written.
Well, this is not something I can confirm by any means, but the idea of a Satya Yuga, Satya means truth. If we would get to the point, or were at a point, where we would not need to talk to understand what's going on, where everything would be much more open, psychically speaking, that we don't even have to do a live stream. We could just stare at each other and know exactly what's going on. To me, that idea is going a little bit higher in consciousness and being able to see all of us as aspects of the whole, thus being able to connect to multiple minds at the same time as this higher order consciousness. And I also think that these higher order consciousnesses are the things that would dictate the flow of the fish in the river, the movement of the zebras, migrations, how animals can tell the earthquakes way before the seismographs do. So I think that there is this inherent ability that various natives people have also shown, like when the hunting party had to prepare a feast or not prepare a feast, depending, I mean, not the hunting party, the people who were left back either prepared a feast or did not prepare one based on whether the hunting party was successful way before the hunting party came back. And they asked, like, how did they do that? Well, they pointed to their heart and said, you guys have a telegraph? Well, this is our telegraph right here. So there is so much interesting things, I think, for us to uncover. The only problem is that I think people put a limitation and say, no, this is where we are, and we are not going to get any further than this. Put on your VR headset, put on, eat the soy, put in the microchips, and be happy. Live in the pod.
Yeah, that's, we're equally faith-filled people and skeptics. Mm-hmm. And I'm all for faith and skepticism, but if you just become a skeptic of everything, then what are you? And if you're just a faithful believer in everything without any skepticism at all, then what are you? Going back to the caves painting stuff, I read The Everlasting Man by G.K. Chesterton, and he makes this great point that the oldest work of art that we have is the caves of Lascaux, the hunt party, those giant, whatever those bison are, and little men hunting them. And We don't know anything about them. We only know that's the earliest thing that we have of a developed man written on the back of a cave. And all we know are two things, is that mankind was an artist and he was religious. And if you look at the design of those bison, it's amazing design. The shapes, the anatomy, the detail, the design, the style of that artist that lived all this time. And I think we're following in a great tradition, and that we're religious and we're artists.
I'm going to put that image up in the chat just because it is very beautiful to look at, and I want everybody to experience this. So look at this. Look at this beautiful creature.
That's the earliest thing we have of man. Notice, this is not primitive art.
Nope.
This is highly developed, amazing design work. That's the first thing we have of people.
And, and so few details. Like, I noticed that those brushstrokes, or however that was done, it didn't involve cross hatching and all that. Like, I remember I was really into cross hatching in art school in the beginning. So this is very simply done, nothing extra. And that is
simple but strong. I mean, it's like minimalized. They boiled it down. It's just, this guy is one of the most kick-ass artists to ever live. He didn't evolve up to this. This is all we have.
Yeah,
he came out amazing.
Yeah, this is better than the
proof we peaked in a cave. That's good. Been downhill ever since when we came out of the cave.
Yeah, well, that's why I think we do have a lot of people today. Like, we're going to have an anarcho-primitivism versus transhumanist talk in a couple of weeks. That's going to be
fascinating. I've studied transhumanism too.
Excellent. Well, maybe if you want to join us, feel free. But we have a comment. Let me find exactly where it is here. We have a comment from Grug, Punished Venom Grug, who is watching. I think he even got early off work just so that he could watch this stream. So how about that? That is dedication right there. So
shout outs to Grug.
Shout outs to Grug. And by the way, we have Hero Alchemy joining us while I look for his question. Hero, this is an opportunity for you to meet one of your heroes. You know, they say never meet your heroes, but here we are. So, Hero, do you have any questions you want to ask to Doug?
Maybe not immediately, because I don't really want to derail the conversation much, because I think this is extremely interesting, and I'm so happy to hear Doug talk about this. I will just say that Doug, I've been a huge fan for a long time. Me and Grug is a good friend of mine. We've been really we really love a lot of your work. Oddly enough, Cat Scratch is one of the things that I know you the most from. My family and I watched that a lot when I was a kid.
That's a great cartoon, man. We kicked ass at Nickelodeon for those years, man.
I loved it. There's something really spectacular about your ability to stand up and stand strong with faith and conviction to all the social pressure that's just been placed on you for everything that you say. And I think that's just extremely commendable, and you're a real inspiration for doing that. So thank you.
That is my big message, is for everyone to stand strong and don't live in fear. And because you will be homogenized into just a ball of gray mush. And that is not showing off your signature. Going back to the creativity. You were put here for a reason. You're made unique for a reason. I really resent that the edges would be carved off of Lev or anyone else. It disgusts me what we do to other people. It's like we're going to put this cultural prison around people. And I just want to keep encouraging you guys. I hope that my bombacity and my big fat mouth gives some people a little bit more bravery to see that if I survived it, maybe you can too.
Love it. Entirely with you.
And I have a message for everyone. Please subscribe. We are almost at 2,000 subscribers. Get
them over 2,000, guys. Come on. You throw these. 2 years ago, you guys were throwing subscriptions away. You were just throwing them everywhere. Get in there.
Thank you. So here's the question from Grug. What impact, and he is joining us in the chat, by the way, what impact do you think social media has had on American culture? Do you think the decay of religion's cultural influence in America will have long-lasting negative effects on the people? And what teachings from your beliefs would you like to see reintroduced to the culture?
That's a difficult question that brings me great anguish. because we used to have a grasp of my religion, and it is quickly being jettisoned or corrupted. And I don't know the way back. I only know that when someone says, culture says, 2 + 3 is 4, I go, no, 2 + 2 is 4. And they go, oh, but it's terrible that you believe that 2 + 2 is 4. I go, well, what's the way back? You have to believe that 2 + 2 is 4. So I wish there was another answer. Maybe I don't wish there was another answer. I only know that there isn't another answer than the one answer I've come up with. And so that's the only one that I advocate for. I think social media is alien to us. It's new. It's a very powerful weapon. In some ways, it removes the humanity between us. And I think the humanity between us, like the stuff that you experience, say, in a yoga class, Lev, with fellow bodies moving in a room, is amazing. We would do so much better even with this show if we were sitting in a room around a couch.
Definitely.
Having the joy of each other's presence and warmth. And that is removed as we talk to each other through these electronic tubes. This is a kind of a dim picture of what we should be doing. So I hope all of you have real life friends and real life families to go love and be with, because I would feel really bad if you didn't have that. And if you're alone, go out and find someone.
Yeah, I mean, now with COVID, it gets a little bit hard for some people to
F COVID. F COVID, get out there. I seriously, I'd rather die of COVID than be alone. I'd rather die of COVID than die of being alone. Oh, so be careful, whatever, but you'll find someone, and people need each other. That's some of the first verses when man is created in Genesis. God is walking with man in the garden, and it says, man, it is not good that man is alone. You'd say even walking hand in hand with God in the garden wasn't enough. God calls him alone. He goes, oh, I'll make him a helper. And he makes Eve. So we really need other people. And that's the biggest crime that I think the internet provides, is it lets our brains kind of talk and argue. And Twitter's even worse, right? Because I'm just dropping bombs on Twitter, and it's just evil. It's like the worst thing in your heart coming out through the internet at each other. And right, Chris?
They love you on Twitter.
Yeah. Bomb thrower on Twitter.
Wait,
Twitter's my sewer. Twitter's where I go to take a dump.
Yeah.
And by the way, we should be joined by Reagan Lodge soon. Chris?
Oh, I'm saying that's where I go when I take a dump. That's my main use, is on the toilet for sure.
Yeah. And we have a comment from Super Iron Bob, who has been with us for a very long time, and I love Super Iron Bob. One thing I just wanted to say before that is, if you guys have a question for Doug, here's what we're going to do now, because we got to grow this thing. Streamlabs.com/breaktherules. If you have a PayPal, go there. Cointree/breaktherules for cryptocurrency, Bitcoin or Ethereum. Bitcoin's been going pretty high up, so if there are any Bitcoin millionaires watching this right now, you know what to do, and I will read your question out loud. But Super Iron Bob says, social media brought back the tools of gossip that we had, but removes the connections we had that kept that tool in check.
Yeah, so the answer is to go out and find real people. But the next best thing I do think is at least video on camera talking with each other. The amount of conversation that you can do in this form is better than the other, including podcasting. I just think video is better than podcasting. It's just, you need to see another face. I don't just want to hear a voice, and I don't just want to read text. But I don't know how to put that toothpaste back in the tube. If you think about it, I can think like an evolutionist. I've read enough evolution to know. You have a hunter-gatherer mind made to gather up nuts and kill bison. The human brain and body does not evolve that fast. If you think of how complicated it is, There aren't that many generations between now and hunter-gatherer society to account for our ability, the brain's ability to go on the internet and just have the world's library in your phone, and complete convenience and connectivity suddenly thrust on us in the last 20 years or 100 years, let's say, in the industrial age. We are not making an evolutionary argument. I can actually make one very strong against it, that we were not equipped for this, to have your mind go through a tube all throughout the internet and be able to glean information and try and balance my 5,000 friends on Facebook, my 170,000 subs on my Doug TenNapel fan page, my 20,000 Twitter survivors. I'm trying to balance all these relationships, and someone comes in and just throws a sentence at me. Where was Jesus when he was sucking my dick? You know, what am I supposed to do with that? You know, suddenly you have to like process. Who is this guy? How many followers? Where's he from? Who is this? How's he connected to the other guys? Who does he follow? You know, your mind is just not meant to socialize in this way. You're supposed to go next door with the guy, break open a cigar and a beer. Hey, how's it going? What are you working on? Mm-hmm. That's been our interaction. You know, going all the way back is more what it's like. You bring someone a meal and you sit down and you have a meal with them, and your life just isn't that busy. So I think what you're seeing is a mass social overload, stress overload, and a thinness. So it's like 20 miles wide and an inch deep. And I think we need 20 miles deep, you know, and an inch wide. I'd rather have fewer friends. And I have very close real life friends that's my sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Based.
Now, well, speaking of based and speaking of hate comments, I do want to get into some of the. When I posted this on Facebook, I got some criticisms from some of my New York animation friends about having you on. So I do want to get into So I do want to get into the nitty gritty here. So one of the things that they are talking about is that you are in favor of the gay therapy. And one thing that I just want to say...
I've never publicly said that, but I haven't even thought about it.
So, but, you know, like, I don't know if they're talking about, like, the... Because, look, they are showing, as far as I saw, that a lot of these things, you know, they end up not really working out that well. And look at Marcus Bachmann, for example, Michelle Bachmann's husband. I mean, I'm sorry, but he is so... You know, he is a very effeminate guy, and in the grand scheme of things, we have had so many amazing artists, creators who were gay, you know, not just Oscar Wilde, but, you know, like some of the romances that people look to, they were created by gay guys. So when it comes to that, I see that I don't care personally, whatever, you know, that whole libertarian line, I agree with it. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. As far as society goes, I'm not in favor of having like the S&M things be displayed, you know, for everybody to look at outside. But when it comes to the use of force, like the guy who was arguing this, like he is also in favor of socialism, in favor of the workers being able to have more of a say. I'm not sure if I would go as far as to say dictatorship of the proletariat. I don't want to speak for him. But the idea here is that those suggestions, for me at least, when enough people suggested them, or rather to say, when enough intellectuals like Trotsky, like Lenin, so on and so forth, who were also funded by the German government, etc., when they were able to get power, they were able to pass these things and make where I come from, the USSR, into a living hell for most people. Right. Even the new economic policy that Lenin smartly ended up implementing didn't help because things are already, you know, Stalin was able to get in and thugs end up going into that kind of system. Anyway, I don't want to go on the whole communist rant.
Going back to the New York animators. Yes. By the way, real quick, if I can, just while we're on the subject of communism, I'm reading a book right now called Live Not by Lies by Rod Dreher, D-R-E-H-E-R. It's amazing. He's just interviewing people who came out of the USSR and the Czech Republic and Poland who were victims of communism. And it's a warning to Americans of what happened and how they used all the tools that we see being used in Marxism today in America. It's a warning and how to survive and how to reconnect with real people. And it's about dissidents, being a dissident.
Yeah, my parents were dissidents, and one quick thing is that my parents, they were dissidents, so were their friends, and during that time of Brezhnev, their friends were put into mental institutions, and they were force-fed drugs that screwed up their mind intentionally as a warning to the others. So it is a very dangerous thing, and I
Live
wish...
not by lies. That's the last quote that's one of Solzhenitsyn's last addresses to Russia. There it is. Going into the gay thing, I do first of all think it's funny that you talk about your New York animator friends, because why would they be semi-united on an opinion about me when all we know about them is that they're from New York and that they're animators? I just think it's weird how that in and of itself is a worldview.
I
there
can see
there
that.
is a culture that
I want to forget about that for a second, though. You're right, but I can't let that influence me. I want this to be like a Pepsi challenge, where we have the ideas,
Sure.
as opposed to, because I'm also from New York, so.
Yeah, in New York. Yeah, I'm not saying everybody. I'm only saying, well, I'll also give an example on the pray the gay away thing and conversion therapy. I know two very good friends who used to be gay and are now, they went through some kind of a ministry of some kind. It's not as bad as they make it sound, like it's some re-education camp or something. It was through some kind of group talk, spiritual renewal. They're now married heterosexuals with children and very happy. So those are two anecdotal things. They may be complete outliers. I'm only saying what I believe about human sexuality, and I think it's been demonstrated fairly well, that it's incredibly flexible. It's far more about moral choices than genetic engineering and programming. I don't know that. I can't explain it all the time. I'm only saying, you put the burliest men in a prison and they'll all be scurrying each other in the showers. You put the men on a boat in the Navy, you'll have an uptick of affection for each other. And I say this talking about one of my best friends growing up is a prison guard. So I'm just saying, I can't explain that, but there is counter evidence, and there's no evidence that they've tried. This is from a 1996 study where they tried proving that homosexuality, there was a gay gene. It was all quack science. They never found it. So the idea that you're programmed a certain way and not enculturated or make your own personal moral choices, I just don't believe it. So that's just a start, okay, with my skepticism. My second point is, even if you were born a certain way, we don't give people a moral pass. So think of all the things that you could be doing because you're born a certain way. You could say, I'm attracted to children, I'm attracted to dogs. I'm married to the same woman for 30 years. I've been attracted to other women. If I was to go and cheat on her and have sex with them because I'm attracted to them, it wouldn't last very long in this house with her. It would be a divorce. And no amount of my claiming I was programmed for more than one person would win the day. Every single man who's ever been in any marriage, your dad, my dad, has been tempted to have more than one woman. And yet we look down on it, even though they're programmed or even enculturated.
Except for the
to
French.
have multiple of, except the French. Yeah, they're way more open to it. The French, but the French.
Yeah.
So that's my second premise, is that just because I feel something doesn't make it right. Just because I can be driven to madness over something and it doesn't make it okay. And then my third premise on my real stance is, among my homosexual friends, who my job is to love with all my life, with all my heart. My third premise is, all of us came from a mother and a father. None of us did not come from a man and a woman. None of us. Zero. It's anti-human. Man and woman is pro-human. You make more levs that way. And I'm in defense of your existence and Chris. and Reagan and everyone here. That is who I'm advocating for. That you cannot say in a society that when a man and woman says we will get married, that it is 100% rationally interchangeable with two men.
Well, and it does continue the cycle I talked before about the giving and receiving cycle of generating life, just like the breathing generates this energy I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But I would still say that I think the concern for a lot of people comes from the idea of if you are against a certain thing, then you would vote and you would call upon, let's say, the government or the village or a bigger institution to force people not to do certain things. And like where
we do that all the time, by the way.
Yes, we do.
Okay, we don't allow fathers to marry their legal age daughters.
But I would say that's different though, because when we're talking about
it is different, but I'm only saying the government tells people. It's not a libertarian government. The government tells people what to do all the time. It's not necessarily, would you accuse someone of hatred? Do you think it probably generates from a position in their heart of hatred that they would say the government should not allow a legal age father to marry his legal age daughter? Just in your mind, anecdotally, do you think that would generate from hatred?
No, but I would add on to that people, just like with, let's say, pedophilia or things of that nature, they would very safely and correctly anticipate certain things would be rampant for abuse, much like I talked about the USSR being rampant for abuse, where the dictatorship of the proletariat ends up going to the thugs who can wield the most power at the end of the day. So I think those things are easy to look at. When we are talking
I'm only saying, if you'll give yourself a pass that maybe it didn't come from hatred, maybe mine doesn't come from hatred.
I don't think yours comes from hatred. What I would say though is that I think people are concerned about that if you are equating the father not being able to marry the daughter with same-sex couples of legal age, then when it comes to that, sure, you could say that you may think that it would hurt them in some way here or there, depending on your personal views. But at a certain point of this gradient, I think it is much easier to say that a father figure taking advantage of his of his daughter, or somebody taking advantage of a child, neither of these two parties have their brain properly formed or have.
But I'm saying if she's legal age, that's why I'm saying legal age.
Yeah.
Who are you? How does that affect your marriage?
With that daughter, that is an interesting question. I think the only thing that I would add there is that there is a certain element of familial coercion. Knowing somebody for that long of a time, they could have such an influence upon your life. And it is a very gray zone, but I would say that there is a strong element of coercion there. While if you are talking about with men and men, women and women, sure, some relationships, just like any other relationship, could have a coercive element. It could have an element of being a gold digger if we're talking about,
I'm only saying I agree with all your arguments. Of course I agree with your arguments, but I'm only saying I don't attribute a bad motive to your arguments. I'm saying it is reasonable for someone to say that a man and a man is not interchangeable with a man and a woman, and probably shouldn't be interchangeable to the state because of what comes of those two forms of relationships. Now, I'm only saying that right now, the law says any two men can get married. Like, wanton, go for it. Why are they so upset that they have every legal right? They're the stars of Hollywood. They're the dolls of any animation crew. The preferred, people rather have 1 million gay couples on an animation crew than any evangelical like me, even though I may have twice their talent. Serious. So I'm only saying, why, when you have all the legal rights, they want to get into my head and they're like, no, you must be destroyed unless you change your mind and agree with me. That's what all of those New York animators are saying. They're saying, you must be disinvited from Lev's show. You should be shamed. And we're going to come after Lev, by the way.
I already have so
unless-
many controversial people here. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm only saying that none of those kinds of arguments buy much purchase with me. And I'm happy it doesn't buy much purchase with you, but it buys purchase with a whole lot of people. Frankly, the majority of people.
Well, I definitely don't buy the hate argument. I think it is such a, sorry to say, like a 13-year-old mentality type of argument, always using the word hate as a stand-in. You know, the conversation has deflated to that level. It's kind of pathetic. But I would say that a much more valid argument that I could possibly make for them would be like, hey, this person does not want gay people to marry. If there are enough of these people that they are going to get the government to vote for it, even though these people who vote for it may not have a shred of hatred in their hearts, they could all be, you know, great God-fearing Christian people. At the same time, what they believe in would lead to, you know, kind of like, and Buff's not going to like this, but in Russia, for example, Russia's kind of like, here we go, Russia's kind of like a Potemkin village, in that they present one thing to the outside world, and they present a completely different thing in the way that they act themselves, where the Russian government, so many people there are gay, yet they have a lot of the anti-gay laws, and also they've recently, I don't know how recently, but it is much easier now to get away with beating your wife, because, you know, the great chain of being, you know,
Sure.
man over woman. So again, there are certain things that well-intentioned people who believe in God may create into being for the rest of society that would force people to have to, you know, be in the kind of state that they would not want to be in as free individuals. And that is something that I'm particularly against.
Sure.
So what I'm trying to do here is kind of like extract from whatever, you know, very bland and very tired arguments that people would be giving off, something that would have more substantial value, and maybe think for a second, like, what if this does happen? So I'm curious what you would think there.
Sure. What I would think is, first of all, none of us are for a state top-down solution that pressures people into believing something they don't believe in. So no one wants a state that goes in and tells gays you can't be gay. No one wants a state that tells evangelicals you will be punished if you believe gay marriage is wrong. Only one of those is being practiced today
That is
by the state.
That is fair to say. They could say, well, Doug, you're just like this individual guy. How are you speaking for all the rest of the Christians? So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I don't speak for all, I only speak for myself, obviously, but I know so many people under just professional abuse, and like families that want to adopt, but they can't adopt a kid unless they agree to allow them to be non-binary or, you know, transsexual. If they come out that way, you have to sign a document or you can't have the kid. The state is absolutely oppressive, going one way. So I'm only saying that sin that you talked about that happens in Russia, it's happening more in favor of punishing Christians for their beliefs than it is for punishing gays for their actions. From what I see of gays, they walk around pretty much in public doing great, and I'm not here to destroy their lives or ruin their fun at all.
Oh, and one more
So
thing.
I'm saying,
yeah,
I feel like I'm in the stronger argument here of arguing oppression more than the gays. Now, are they doing something dangerous? The divorce rate, the disease rate, and suicide rate of homosexual couples is so high that it's on the center of disease control. The CDC website has warnings about homosexual coupling. That's a cruel thing to say. I get it. So I'm not trying to be mean. I'm only saying that if you go to, for those people who say that it is those of us who oppose gay marriage or whatever that is causing the suicide and causing this. I never met a gay person that cared what I thought. So it's not like I hold this will over him, because he likewise thinks I'm a monster and I'm not hanging myself. So something else is happening that's causing that. And so say in America, you might have still some remnant of a cultural judgment against trans people, right? Against gender dysphoria and operating on your, we call it mutilating yourself or a trans, whatever. In other countries like Sweden, where it's completely socially acceptable, the suicide rate remains constant. The suicide rate remains constant, regardless of if you have a bunch of evangelicals opposing it or if you have a bunch of the church fully endorsing it. The suicide rate is constant. My bigger concern is I don't think it's being loving to a society of people when their choices in life causes more suicide. I don't think that's loving. I think that's immoral.
I would add to this that when it comes to the swinging of the pendulum idea, which I'm not sure if this is what happens, but it may be happening right now, where you have had all these decades and centuries of people not being able to express themselves to that level. It came out in certain bursts. It came out, for example, in the 20s with the jazz era, with boozing it up and doing all kinds of other drugs, the flappers. So that
you see it in Fitzgerald's
The Great Gatsby.
Great Gatsby.
Yes.
Yeah, has the first lesbian relationship.
So that was one bump. Then we have another bump in the 60s. And that was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll era of the boomers. And people forget, and I had to be reminded of this as well, that for all the, let's say, social alienation that's going on today, and the way that people are fragmented, and the way you could say like, oh, all these people, they're away from their roots, they've been cast off from things that are bigger than themselves. I would say the same thing for the boomers who went to Woodstock and other festivals, did tons of drugs, and so many of them ended up dying and having various problems in their life because of that. Like, we forget that the Soviet Union also funded a lot of these ideas that were coming about at that time, with dropping out and so on and so forth. But just the sheer amount of people that were completely cast away from anything that rooted them to the earth or rooted them to a higher calling other than just having sex and doing drugs all the time. Like, that is, and not just LSD, but we're talking about cocaine, we're talking about all this stuff. That was another bump.
That's all in that book, Live Not by Lies, by the way. You got to check it out.
Interesting. I definitely will. But right now,
awesome.
we're in another bump. Things are very, SJW and so on. And I think that it's also something that's going to swing the other way. And things do, I think, end up balancing themselves. As far as how long it takes, I'm not sure. But this leads me to a classmate of mine. I was classmates back in SVA with Rebecca Sugar. And you met Rebecca, I believe, right? Like
I taught Rebecca.
Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah, I've known her since she was a kid. She would bring her little comics to me in Comic-Con. And I taught at Cal Arts one time. Both Rebecca Sugar and Penn Ward were my kids. So I've known them forever.
Wow. And she, I don't even know why she went to SVA, because to be honest, she was already such a great illustrator.
I've got comics of her little home printed things. In fact, some of her character designs are based on my work. Her senior animation thesis is based on my characters in the Neverhood. So Rebecca and I go way back. Of course, I don't think she could ever speak my name in polite company now, nor would I think she'd want to, but this is what's weird about fans is they all want your help when they're coming up. They're all like, hey, will you look at my drawings? And hey, buddy. And then you're all buddy. Then they make it. And they're like, I can't be seen with that guy. Guy's a monster.
Well, to be fair to her, I think
they say don't meet your heroes.
Yes.
Don't meet your fans.
Well, I think, to be fair to Rebecca, I think there is so much pressure going on right now in these studios to toe the line that even if she wanted to express her gratitude for all the things that you have taught her, it's so, it's incredibly hard. And I think that a lot of the things that have come about from Steven Universe, from the fandom, it is way more than Rebecca. It's become like its own thing. And the question is, where does this thing end up leading people as far as influences go? Because again, I totally respect Rebecca. I think she's an amazing artist. And,
she's brilliant. I'm a huge fan. It breaks my heart when I see people make fun of her looks, make fun of her life decisions. I don't stand for any of that. I pray for her and I love her.
Though I gotta say, I'm not the biggest fan of Crocs, and she was into the Crocs, and I don't know. Maybe they're comfy. I gotta try them out. I like the shoes that are a little bit more like the Vibram Five Fingers. So who am I?
Yep.
Who am I to judge? If you're talking
She's
about
brilliant. I knew Steven. I knew all those kids.
Mhm.
Penn Ward used to bring me little drawings, and I love him. He gave me I was hurting for money, in fact, and he gave me a storyboarding gig on Adventure Time back the season that got canceled. I developed a whole episode, and it ended up getting canned. But in fourth season, he brought back some of the elements in Sons of Mars, and he gave me a writing credit on it. So
That's amazing.
I'm just saying, but now politics are so what they are that none of these people can speak of my name just for what I've said on your show. They'd get the same calls by the New York animators.
Well, I don't know how powerful the New York.
You know, those freewheeling, open-minded, non-judgmental, tolerant, just hippy dippy, go along to get along, cool hipster kids. Just let your hair down, wear tattoos, whatever you want.
No, I want to bring him on the show. I wish they could have been here with you. They did not want to go, but really, this environment break the rules. For those who don't know, for those who are just tuning in, check out our other stuff. Don't forget to subscribe, because what we do here is we bring together people who otherwise would never be here. We had Pete Buttigieg's staffer, who was the personal assistant of Pete's husband, in for a show about the Great Reset, where we talked about all this technocracy stuff that's coming our way. And she was speaking with anonymous Twitter people, you know, esoteric Twitter, 4chan people, and she had a great time. It was a great conversation. And I never see this happening. So this is what we do, and this is what we're going to continue to do.
I think this is the best show going. This is what.
Oh, man. Thank
to
you.
me, this is what YouTube's for, is you should get a bunch of free thinkers to get out, talk, bring in people from the outside. And this is eclecticism that you talked about, iconoclasm.
I definitely appreciate it. Oh, and by the way, I first met Rebecca Sugar. She was actually the first person I met at SVA at Paloonan Snow Show. I don't know if you ever went there, but that was one of the things, along with Avenue Q, that SVA was offering as like a free show. And it's this Russian guy named Paloonan, and I'll send you his stuff. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
It's very beautiful.
I love art. I'm art nut.
So I want to get to some questions here, and I want to ask the rest of the panel. I think the rest of the panel has been too quiet for comfort. So Chris Gassler, who is an amazing
unleash
animator. Yes,
Chris.
Unleash Chris.
Release the Chris.
I don't know if you guys know each other, but Chris is such an amazing animator. So beautiful, your work, and
wonderful.
So go for it, Chris.
Go into what?
Whatever you want. If you have a question for Doug, now is the time.
Oh man. When actually do you think, Doug, that you saw the switch go from all these like animators in New York kind of because at least when I started doing cartoons, and I started early 2000 or 2010s, 2011ish.
Yeah.
What do you call it? I came up with a lot of people from Newgrounds, and there wasn't a lot of political affiliation with any groups or anything. But since the years have gone on, I've seen a lot of more cliques come about, and entire areas where our industries are located have, like in Burbank or New York City, there's a lot of art industries that have gone into being very, I guess, cliquey would be a good word. Like, was that always a thing in the industry, or was that?
It was not.
That came about in a more recent, like this is a very new thing.
I really saw it uptick in 2008. So 2007, 8, and 9, I saw it uptick the most. But go all the way back with artists, right? We have always been lunatics and weirdos. Every kind of person you can imagine is in our wake.
Right.
Amazing. Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Marcel Duchamp, John Lynch, Tim Burton,
Wait, did
Rebecca
you mean David Lynch?
David Lynch, I'm sorry. Filmmaker.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Art Clokey, Jim Henson, all over, Tom Wolfe, conservatives, Tom Wolfe. I mean, giant brain barn burners And all you had to do to hang with each other was, you know, you just hang. Warhol, you know, and Mad Men, we loved each other. So on my Cat Scratch crew, this is back in probably 2003, I had a guy who transitioned into a woman. I had gays, I had atheists, I had born again Christians, I had Scientologists, I had Muslims, black, white, kid in a wheelchair. Nobody cared. There was no hatred. We disagreed like crazy. Right when Bush won the 2004, the second election, 3 of my crew members went home crying, you know? So I'm just saying, it wasn't people were afraid to share ideas. It's they were allowed. And then suddenly the cliques came. And I don't know where the intolerance came from, but suddenly, and I've only seen it the most demonstrated in Marxist philosophy. And that's where we get SJW and wokeness from, is what we call it. It's kind of this babysitting and carving of people into something where they should be ashamed of themselves, of their core beliefs, of who they are. And it definitely follows along one political ideology, because I was the most conservative guy I knew. It was never a question. In fact, the trans gal, Amber, I loved, and we would share cigarettes. We would bum cigarettes off each other at lunch break and sit and talk and have long discussions. And she would say, all I want to do is marry a normal man and have children, you know? And we were buds. The whole crew was tight. I don't think that kind of tightness can exist today unless you all think the same. So I would say it's about 12 years old, and it's getting worse. You see them floating up now. You know, I can't go on some guy's YouTube channel. It used to be, you can't hire that guy. I'm so unhireable now, you know, just absolutely obliterated. But, and now we're all tribal. I'm telling you, it freaks me out. This is why I'm in English, because you'll go on Twitter, right? And it's going to be, I see right wingers now. The Lincoln Project today posted a thing talking about, let's call out who supported Trump. That is an alleged center-right Republican group doing a Marxist SJW tactic of making lists. This is McCarthyism. So don't make a list of anybody, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-recount, anti-recount. I will not make a list. I will not put you in that box. And I hope you don't act according to a tribe. And I don't want to act according to a tribe.
I've always been someone that is very centered and just, I want to do my stuff. Like I'm not like very like left or right leaning. I've always kind of just, I'm just worked on my own stuff. And I know a lot of people in studios that are very much like that, but they find themselves having to just even go along with like conversations in the workplace where they're not really too into politics or anything, but they have to lean or say certain things just to keep up appearances with these groups that they're a part of. Because it almost seems like the job depends on that now for certain studios. Like I know in multiple studios, different people who kind of just don't even care, but they have to go along with everything. And it's a weird, like, I don't know how many people really are a part of all these cliques that are super adamant for stuff and against stuff. But it seems like not everybody in them even cares about it that much, like that strongly. But it seems like you can't go against the grain even slightly, otherwise you seem to be cast out, which is a shame. Because
you're seeing it grow. So it's not everybody thinks that. Of course, not everybody thinks that. What troubles me is that it's growing, and the statements against the other people are growing. So I see more numbers of them, and it's probably social media is training us to get more vocal about it, and we'll get little Scooby snacks and rewards from our people if we say they're the right sick burn against blah blah. And I see people, old friends, just going, I'm gonna lay out Doug, and they just lay me out, and they get all the gave him a little tribe says right on, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't take any credit if some Christian sees me throw down a scripture or something and he's like, yeah, my tribe. I'm just like, that's not what I'm doing it for.
I would say, though, that on the right, there is also like this own the libs thing that also prevents there being dialogue.
Yeah, that's tribalism. And now it's getting to be like, I'm going to get lots of clicks if I post enough stuff making fun of Biden, stealing the election. That's the far right. Far left, I'm going to get a ton of clicks. If I call them lunatics for wanting to look to see if there's voter fraud. And then you see the center right, the Republicans, Jonah Goldberg and all those guys going, we're going to get some credit from our people for opposing Trump and for people questioning the ballots. And I'm only saying, like, I'm seeing people fall into all these tribes, and that goes against that first statement I said about creativity and your signature. Why wouldn't a whole bunch of different people be thinking differently? Why is everyone getting corralled into a pie slice?
So weird. Sorry.
Well, just really quickly, I agree that I think that we are seeing a lot of us get really tribal. I'm certainly not exempt from that. I've certainly
I'm not either.
I've certainly formed, kind of around my own tribe, and that's grown as this gets worse and worse. I think a large part of that has to do with the reaction to being so, I don't want to say attacked because I don't want to make myself sound like a victim, but I'm very outspoken even in real life. I live in the Bay Area, so anytime I open my mouth, it's like I either get people that are like shocked that I'd even think something like I think, or that I'd be willing enough to say it out loud. And some people kind of, they give me props for it, but that's rather rare. And I think I think maybe not intentionally, but just in the sense that persecution's too strong a word, but in the sense that we are vilified for the things that we say or we think, or having the audacity to say something different than what is socially
acceptable. It's at least being peer pressured.
Yeah, we're seeing we're seeing people group around people who are like, yeah, say whatever you want. Yeah, of course, say that. It's usually around people that agree with you, or even with people that are not. And we're seeing that mostly on the right. We are seeing people kind of bolstering each other up and saying, yeah, say what you think. Yeah, hold those convictions. And, to be fair, most of them have the same beliefs and convictions, but that seems to be the reason for it. I don't think it's just a pure, like, I want to be tribal kind of a thing. I think a good part of it is the reaction to how things have been going.
Going to get worse or going to get better?
Well, here's what I would add from Andrew Sullivan, whose newsletter I subscribe to. He says in his latest column, the clarifying truth is that we're a very closely divided country, growing further apart culturally and socially, exploited by extremists on left and right, and yet still fundamentally sane. The American people do not want a revolution, but they also realize they do not want Trump as head of state. They removed the nutcase, defanged the woke, showed up to vote in vast numbers, and gave us a constellation of forces in Washington that pleases no one, and that's okay. So the interesting thing for me here is when he says defang the woke. And what I'm curious about is, if, let's say, Trump is not going to be in office, do you think that this pressure that's been mounting from this wokeness would all of a sudden go away, or would it get bigger here? Because the claim that Andrew is making is that people have seen from the vote, since many people voted right, if not for Trump, then for all the other, House of Representatives, Congress, that people are tired of this. And that may reflect on social media. And by the way, Nerd Bomber McTerror donated $10. It is great to see you on BTR, Doug. I grew up watching Earthworm Jim and not being able to. Hold on, it faded away. I'm going to get to his comment right afterwards and repeat it again. I got to extend how long the comment shows up. But anyway, while I'm getting to the comment, don't forget to subscribe.
Thank you.
While I'm getting to the comment, please let me know what you think of this. And also, we've got Regan Lodge in the house, all the way live for the first time on BTR. Welcome, Regan.
Hey,
or is it Reagan?
Up? It's Reagan. Yeah, pretty much like Ronnie, like Doug's hero.
Ronnie
That's right.
Reagan. Yeah.
My man.
I'm glad I could finally make it in, Lev. You've only been inviting me on for like 3 months now, and I've just been, the schedule is pretty unforgiving.
No, that's understandable. But well, let's start with Doug and let's go to Reagan then. What do you think of this this piece from the column that I read from Andrew?
I like Andrew Sullivan. And I like indie guys, that he went indie. I think I don't think it's going to slow down because, by studying Russia, and this goes back to what I believe about the Bible. In Romans, it says, man's heart is ultimately corrupt. We're not ultimately good. That's one of the ways that Marxism disagrees with Christianity, is that you'll see Rousseau and all the romantic philosophers saying man is basically good. No, man is basically bad, according to the Bible. And if you look back, even on recent history, how far will the woke go? How far did Russia go?
I would add, though, as someone from Russia, that in the 60s and 70s, we have had, I think, far more violence and destruction happen. And with the pendulums...
It's coming, Lev.
Maybe. Okay. I would add...
I'm only saying, when you saw Antifa, the news footage of Andy No getting beaten on the streets and they're throwing shakes and bricks at him, did they slow down after a while and go, okay, he's had enough, guys? Or did they not chase him all the way down the street to give him more?
They did not, but since I was not living in the 60s, I can't quite speak to it. But from the conversations that I've had with people who have either experienced it or read about it, it was a pretty crazy time when not only were similar things going on, but they were also funded by the USSR. And even before that, you had the anarchists bombing various public places, back in the beginning of the 20th century. So I want to do a bit of devil's advocate here, just to say that we have experienced tremendous chaos, and really the idea that, okay, America is going to hell in a handbasket. And the other thing I would add is that I think all of us are gradually becoming weaker when we have too many creature comforts, when we don't have too many things to fight against, while a lot of people were fighting against nature by the virtue of living in a peasant lifestyle, even though, again, lots of horrible things with early child death, stillbirths, the mom dying during childbirth, as well as a lot of other diseases. Bad stuff. But at the same time, when you try to fight against nature, just like I was doing yoga, I was fighting against nature. I was fighting against the need that I would otherwise have to just sit down and relax, and I felt a lot better because of that. So my point here is that the one silver lining may be that people are getting so weak because they're not working on themselves that you're not going to have these Bolsheviks, or you're not going to have these Nazis who come from, World War I veterans that have been totally warped and exposed to all these poison gases and having their best friends die, and then having Germany go into the state that it went to at the Weimar Republic. We're not going to have those veterans. So this is the one silver lining, I'd say, of at least preserving some amount of peace and structure as things may level out.
I don't see the hand that holds them back.
Well, it's not going to hold them back. My point is that I'm not sure how much damage they're going to do because they really feel like
They will chase Andy No down the street with a brick. They'll beat you. There's guys jumping on people's heads when they're lying there on the ground still.
It's moved the goalposts since Andy No as well.
Yeah, that, and they move the goalposts each year, which is why I think it not only will get worse, I think it will get unimaginably worse, but it's going to happen in a slow, incremental way. To where people will still be able to think like, okay, they've gone far enough now, it's going to stabilize out here, right? And then it'll just be like one step, slightly worse, slightly worse, slightly worse, the whole boiling the frog.
Yeah.
You lack imagination is what I say. If you don't know how it can get better and unbelievably better, and it can get worse and unbelievably worse. I'm only saying, if you look at the ground of what is happening and what they get away with and what they've been rewarded with, what gets rewarded gets repeated. What's going to happen? You had guys in Soviet Russia that would not turn on their friends, even though they were pulling their teeth out with a pair of rusty pliers. Today, you have 3 guys on puppet accounts tweeting to someone saying, you can't be seen with Doug because he opposes gay marriage. And they're like, I disavow him. You didn't have to even pull any teeth.
Yeah.
But that's talking about weakness, and my only point, again, you could be right, I could be wrong here. My only point is that with that weakness comes a lack of fortitude that allowed the Bolsheviks to take power in the first place. I see all these things denigrating, just like rotting away, and that eventually, once it rots away, something better could be in its place.
Yeah. Well, I do believe, because I believe the truth is a rock that can't be manipulated for long. I just think we'll have to go through something much more like what Germany and Russia went through before we'll be on the other side of it. I just think this is small ball. You ain't seen nothing. Look at man's history, dude. I'm telling you, this is man's inhumanity to man knows no end.
If we're talking about a technocracy, I agree with you. If we're talking about mobs of the Antifa people or anybody like that, my only retort would be, again, that there is a difference between the Antifa and scarred World War I veterans that were duking out in the streets of Germany.
What if they could? What if a bunch of armchair liberals can move 100,000 votes from Trump to Biden? What if they can expand the Supreme Court? What if they can defund the military? What if they can defund the police? We saw them defund the police, dude. What if they put together lists of people who voted for Trump?
Let them defund the police, and let's see what happens to that area. Because I don't think.
Well, what'll probably happen is, I mean, you'll notice that a lot of people who are calling for defunding the police will at the same time be very much in favor for really stiff penalties for people who use self-defense against criminals that the establishment maybe has an interest in turning a blind eye to.
Yeah, like the kid that shot the other kid in self-defense for murder. Everyone learns, everyone gets corralled.
Yeah, everybody likes to have this, a lot of these guys on the right, they like to have this kind of Mad Max fantasy that like, oh, on the bright side, everything will just collapse. And I'm just going to be out there road warrioring it up and stuff. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You look up anarcho-tyranny. It's going to be its order for certain people who are favored by the system and chaos for everybody else. And if you use defensive measures against the chaos, you will get punished by what little law enforcement remains.
And for the New York animators who think they will be favored by the system, the totalitarians always go after the artists first. You cannot have free-thinking artists making things. You have to buckle them under to be in your propaganda wing. They always 100% go after the artists first. They're soft, pliable, they'll go along, and your skills and your talent and your signature will become the state's megaphone.
So the only thing that we do have going for us, and by us I mean free-thinking people who do not want to have the totalitarian boot on their neck regardless of what we believe. For those people, the one thing that we do still have going for us is that America is a nation of guns, not everywhere, but for the most part. And because of that, there are going to be people who lose a lot of their guns in boating accidents should certain laws start coming into effect. And I think that they are going to be very, very angry, and they are going to start organizing amongst themselves as the frog starts getting more and more boiled. I would also say to, let's say, play devil's advocate for the establishment. One pattern that I've seen time and time again is the establishment giving a little rattle to the baby. By the baby, I mean the far left, and saying, cuckoo, here's the rattle. Aren't you happy now? The rattle, for example, was that anti-gun protest with Emma Gonzalez and David Hogg that was going on. What came of that? Everybody went into the streets, they were jumping and dancing, and then that was it. So to me, I think the role of the establishment, as much as we hate it, is being able to corral these people. Sure, you could say that they were using them to get rid of Trump. Valid. But I would also say that the establishment, for all its faults, I don't think Anderson Cooper wants to live in North Korea. I think that they do enjoy the kind of society that America has, even though I would argue that elements within the establishment, or whatever you want to call it, have been, through various international deals, siphoning away some of the resources from the United States. That's a separate thing.
They don't have to go for the guns thing. I think we can learn too much from what happened in Soviet Russia and Germany also, because that's something else that's talked about in Live Not by Lies, is the new form of totalitarianism is not going to be guns and that kind of jackbooted thuggery. It's a technocracy now, much more like the facial recognition social standards in China, where Facebook, Twitter can just, make you unemployable, shut off your visa, shut off your food, and make you compliant that way. I'll take away your Netflix and you'll follow me anywhere. You will rat out who I tell you to rat out. I will tell you that two men having sex is interchangeable with a man and a woman having sex, and you will believe it. In spite of it being completely irrational, you will follow, and you'll pressure your friends to follow. But people do follow. That's the big warning that 1984 gives, why it's so important that he ratted out his own girlfriend and said, take Julia first, take her first. And the same thing in Brazil, when the guy's about to get the drill in him. It's always your friend. So choose your friends carefully. I have a group of friends like Reagan who will not turn, and I will not turn on Reagan. You need to find that.
Yeah, I've lost so many friends because I'm friends with Doug.
That's right.
And it's like, were they really friends?
That's right. You know who your friends are. And by the way, Lev, I don't put much stock in guns, even though I own a ton and a ton of ammo. I do put a lot of stock in human loyalty, human love, friendship, family, and community. I think that is probably a more reliable and stronger force than any gun.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's something I try to emphasize to a lot of the people like in my live streams and stuff, is like, forget about ideology and whatever the hip, thing is of the moment and stuff. Your number one thing above all else is loyalty with other people. And that can transcend ideology and politics and possibly even, even religion, depending on how convicted you are of that. Like I have friends who are, very far left wing and stuff, but they've had enough real time with me to know like who I really am. And I know who they really are. I mean, same with a lot of my family. And my entire family, with the exception of basically me and my brother, is pretty liberal. Even my dad, who named me freaking Reagan, he's a never Trumper. But it's like, still, it's like at the end of the day, I know that loyalty is real because it's been tested. It has to be tested for you to know it's there. So that's why I tell people, like, avoid any of these like purity spiraling type cliques and stuff where they're like, oh, you gotta pass this or that ideology test to be with the in group, because those groups will always sell you the hell out as soon as they think that you're impure or something like that.
Because they'll gain power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen it on the right as well as the left. I mean, I would say that it's way more on the left, but you'll see it with some of the.
It's on the right too. You'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and Jugs asks me, what fragrance am I wearing today? I am wearing. Hold on one second.
Shout out to Jugs. Subscribe everybody right now in this gap of time while Reagan is grabbing whatever he's grabbing over there. Do we got to get the number up? Look at that beautiful.
Yeah.
We got to get there.
Yes.
my God.
Animal.
Yeah, so Jugs, I'm wearing Animal. It's awesome. It's kind of like Angel, but a little
That's
bit more.
awesome packaging.
A little bit
dude.
more.
I like
Yeah,
it.
it's really cool. It's only $20, and this stuff is strong. Wow.
Nice. So one thing that I also really wanted to ask Doug, I went to a Discord server, and the conversation started up about this show that we're having right now, and people were talking about Comicsgate and what exactly was going on with Comicsgate. And there was also a fun-looking video that they sent that I am going to put into the BTR chat right now. It is an animated video. I don't know if you are aware of this. Probably you saw it before, but it has various... have you seen this one?
I'm not seeing anything on screen.
So it is in the BTR chat right now.
Oh,
I'm going to
Lord.
blow it up for you. So
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
yes.
Yeah.
So guide us through this. What exactly is going on? What exactly are the insinuations here? Because there was some problem I heard with you and Comicsgate and
That's right.
and how you were funding it, but then you decided not to work with them anymore, so they felt used. And I'm not exactly sure whether
they were told to feel used, so they felt used by social influence. They were not used, but these are all like the guys that went against Comicsgate, and this piece of animation is a piece of propaganda. There's me.
There's you.
90s Earthworm Jim money. So this is all their little useful narrative stuff. And this is Cecil, who is one of their favorite guys coming out to fight me.
I'm not sure who the other people are here. Is that a cat?
There's Georgia Nasser and all these people. This is all social influencing of who's in and who's out for beta males.
Interesting. Now, one of the other things that they said, and again, like part of being on the BTR stream is that as much as I love talking with you, Doug, and you are really amazing, as everybody already knows.
Those are my unwashed hands because I don't wash my hands.
Yes, we are going to put you on the hot seat here. So one of the things that they were saying is that you did not send everybody the comic once it was done, once you raised enough money for it.
Fair enough.
So let's
that's
go
that's also propagated by Comicsgate, because this is how social influence works. If you're like some member of Comicsgate and you deliver a book 18 months late, you get a pass because the social influencer says you'll get a pass. And if you're like me and you underprint a book by 106 copies, it becomes, because again, the influencers in Comicsgate tell their audience what to think and they follow suit. They all repeat the same thing that I ripped off my backers by 106 comics. Notice no one will say anything about delivering a book 18 months late. They weren't programmed to do that. So what I did on this last campaign is I took all the material that were in those books. It was called The Making of Bigfoot Bill. And I put all that material in the back of the new printing of Bigfoot Bill. And I sent a free copy of that book to every backer that didn't get it 2 years ago. And it cost me about $15,000 of my own money. Whew. And no one in Comicsgate influencing will tell their backers to think that. That's how social influence works. And that's pretty much my summary of Comicsgate in a nutshell. It's a social media group led by a couple of guys who hate my guts. And I have no problem with their business because, I have my own social media group. Each of us have to generate kind of our own audience and interact with them. And that's what you're seeing with that animation even is part of CG culture. And part of CG culture is to attack my career. That's part of their brand. And that's okay.
I would say, though, to defend CG culture, a lot of the Newgrounds people that, we all started up watching, like Chris can testify to, we had a lot of CG animation. I do CG animation, so I don't see any problem there. But I would say that if there were people who did not receive a copy of your book, then I think it would be good for them to either contact me on Twitter, send me videos of them not receiving the book, talking about like, Doug ripped me off, or did I receive the book?
Yeah, and it doesn't tend to come from the people that actually didn't get the book. It came from a group called War Campaign and Comicsgate, but mostly War Campaign really did their dirty work. And now War Campaign's been kicked out of Comicsgate. So there's like a different tribe that's now, demonic to them, and they're all like, ugh, but they still, carry their arguments because it's useful.
Isn't that weird how they all stem off and now they're all like their own separate little bubbles?
That's just normal internet tribes. They break off. And now even in anti-Comicsgate, you'll see little guys break off and, they argue with each other. There's anti-Comicsgate and anti-Comicsgate. And I'm just here to make books, and I'll make books for anybody.
All these hashtag back patches and biker gangs online and stuff. It's just such a distraction from like actually making good stories, I think. And I don't have I buy books from people in Comicsgate. I'm a huge supporter of Doug. Well, there's people in Comicsgate. I don't like what they did to Doug, but there's some people in there who, they're decent. They keep their heads down. They're just making cool books and stuff. But it's like, if, people ask me like if I'm this hashtag or that hashtag, it's like, I don't know, dude. I got a room temperature IQ. I just draw comics.
Yeah, I would like to believe that everybody just wants to create. I mean, if you're in the creative field, going for this stuff, that you just really do want to just do it for the creation itself. You want to just put your work in and do what you want to make, not just be subject to stay on one side or the other. Like, yeah. I hope that's my hope, at least.
I've been making books for 30 years. I've had books succeed. I've had them fail. I've had audiences hate me and love me. And it always goes back to what I do. This is my drawing table right here. You sit down, you do the work, you do a story, and the audience then responds to your work. Mm-hmm. And the thing that people can't impugn is my work. So they can say what they want of all their little Comicsgate circle jerk over there. They can never impugn my book quality, my storytelling, and my artwork is on par. My audience is thrilled with what I make, and I'm happy with that. That they don't like that because they have to promote their guy. It is a social group. It's like I have to make my guy notice me, and he has a huge audience, so there's a lot of them. But they've been pretty quiet for like the last probably 6 months. It'll just flare up, and some of them are just like they'll never give it up. If there's a open forum like your Discord, they'll just come in and just hammer it. That's their
well, to be fair, the people who were talking about that, they said that Comicsgate has got its own problems, so they were not fans of Comicsgate per se.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
What I would also ask though about Comicsgate, just to kind of wrap this up, is while we went over people not receiving the books or receiving them late, then to go back a little bit, the initial teaming up with you and Comicsgate and then breaking it up, what exactly went down there? Because I remember someone said that it had something to do with you not. Afina Haya donated $3. Thank you so much, Afina. Amazing stream. Amazing stream.
Oh,
Happy
it's
to
Afina.
see Reagan and... Oh, man, I missed that last word. I'm going to look at it. Oh, Doug on. Yes, of course, Doug. And also, I'm going to read Nerd Bomber McTerror's. It's great, and that was $10 for Nerd Bomber McTerror. It's great to see you on BTR, Doug. I grew up watching Earthworm Jim and not being able to get past the second level in the SNES game. I was also...
Well, you were young. It's okay.
Wait, it's not It's not SNES, Sega Genesis.
It's SNES and Genesis.
Oh, it's both? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Afina's awesome. She's been in my Twitch chat a little bit. I see her, of course, every time I go to Charles Carroll's channel as well. So she's good people.
Yeah.
And
so what happened with Comicsgate was I had heard that there was this big explosion of indie guys that were open to conservatives, and so I was looking for a place of that kind of cultural cover. Looking for a tribe. And I joined them thinking that's what I needed. And then I saw what they were made of, which was basically a bunch of liberals. They didn't have my values. They tweeted to my publisher that I was a homophobe trying to get the Earthworm Jim license pulled from me. That goes all the way to the top. That is, again, an SJW move. Mm-hmm. So I don't do business and I don't group with that stuff. I did make a lot of friends in CG. I've got a couple of the guys I still talk to privately because they don't want CG coming after them. And I've got a whole lot of their backers still back my works because they like the work. They don't have to like me, or they're just like, look, I can't stand Doug, but I like his work, and I'm happy with that. So that's kind of, I was in it for just a couple months. Within 8 months, I think I was out, and it's been 2 years since because every time my name is brought up, it is brought up as some kind of a dirt worm getting into people's heads.
It's actually funny that you say dirt worm, because I think that was the term that this guy used. And
Yeah, that is a word that you shall all use that.
I thought he was just talking about earthworms for a second, but also actually just to read what he wrote here to finish this up. TLDR. Doug was down on his luck, went to Comicsgate, another rabbit hole, made something like 200K, immediately turned around, called Comicsgate trash after they backed him.
That is true. I did make that money while it was not pure because of Comicsgate, because I can check my my backer lists and see who's in and who's out. You know, I have a 30-year comic book career. I'm an Eisner Award winner. I've sold half of my books into Hollywood because the stories are so rock solid that what I was looking for from Comicsgate, and this is the narrative that they keep repeating, is they thought it was about the money. I was always making money on my books, tons of money. So just because I also made tons of money in Comicsgate, they then think that was the only reason, that's all there is to it. Well, I left Comicsgate and still in fact, I made more money in Earthworm Jim than on Bigfoot Bill. I made more money on Bigfoot Bill 2 than Bigfoot Bill 1. That is, I made more after I left than when I was in. I would have stayed in on the whole time if they acted professional and cared about art and cared about me, and they didn't. They were using me, and they were trying to, and now you see just a full-time discrediting. This is all social media, just the way people act on the internet. If you ever have a group split off from your channel, you'll see what I mean. You say wrong thing, man, and you get a slice off, or you get a co-host. Look at Maddox and Dick Masterson. You know,
Yeah.
Some guy splits off, and suddenly it's a war, and the audience has to show their loyalty by saying certain things, and then the other side shows their loyalty by saying certain things. And all I tell my backers and my followers is, I don't want anyone going after Comicsgate. That's not what if you follow me and if you respect what I think and believe and want, I don't want that.
So high school never ended.
That's right. It's normal. I go, wow, what's wrong with Comicsgate? Then you go and you look at Nick Recada's audience and Dick Masterson's audience and what's his name, Metocracy or whatever his name is, the Matt or the Ralph Retort. You know, they all have these split offs, and they all say the same kinds of things, the groups, and it's just for years they just go blah 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 blah. It's like a shorthand. It's social.
And by the way, we have 2 donations. One from Burger Bird, who donated $14.18. Could we get there from here tonight? I'm not sure what that means. Doug, can you decide?
That's my show with Charles Carroll. We do a show called You Can't Get There From Here. We've got 15 episodes, and his schedule hasn't aligned up with mine to do another one. So it's been a while.
Interesting.
But it's a great show. It's just he and I just doing kind of a flow of consciousness thing.
And
it's on my YouTube channel. Look up Doug TenNapel on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Look up You Can't Get There From Here. We have 15 episodes.
And Athena Hyatt, Charles Carroll's bride-to-be, she was on our show on the Eggy stream, and she's also going to be joining us on Thursday, this coming Thursday. She's joining us along with Frank Hassel, and Eggy is also coming back. So Frank Hassel is going to be on the
that
show.
Sounds like a show.
That's gonna be a good show.
The lovely Athena is wonderful.
Frank Hassel
she's a great person.
He's wonderful.
The good doctor, Dr. Don Wario in the flesh. And I hope that Giovanni Panichetti, who unfortunately cannot be here today. By the way, speaking of Gio, become a patron. Patreon.com/break the rules of the 3 in the. If you become a patron today, $20 gets you my father's very beautiful, exquisite magnets made out of high-quality wood. Look at the craftsmanship here. My father came from the USSR. You know, we were through so many things there, and he got us out of there, and I'm grateful for having such an amazing father, ultra-talented father. Look up his work. I have some of his nutcrackers that you can see over here in the thumbnail and paintings. And Giovanni's absolutely beautiful Japanese woodblock style prints from the TFW No GF series. This is $30 patronage. And by the way, if you guys become $50 patrons, you will get a custom wooden magnet. Whatever you want, my dad's going to make it for you. Say what it is, he's going to make it, and it recurs every year. So
support
every
the
year,
arts and subscribe to this show. Reward what you want repeated, or it will go away. It's important for you to vote with your time and with just a click, with a sense of loyalty and a couple bucks. I see guys give like hundreds of dollars on other shows to show up. It's like you can give a couple bucks.
Absolutely. And
it's funner.
And speaking of a couple of bucks, we have another donation from the great Super Iron Bob. Found you online via Nick's streams, Doug. Glad to see you here and well. Super Iron Bob's amazing. He's been with us through the very beginning. We've been doing this since May. In May, we had 300 subs, and then we started the live streaming, and right now we're at 1988, which is my birthday, by the way. That's the year that I was born. We are at 1988. We got to get to 2000 and beyond, and we're expanding. We are on DLive right now. We are on Periscope. We are on Facebook, for those who still use Facebook. So we are everywhere. We want to keep expanding. We want to keep growing, and we are so happy to have everybody watching this and expanding the conversation. So guys, I'm
good friends with Nick. So you want to talk about an audience? Goodness.
Woo!
Maybe I'll get him. I'll ask if he wants to come on your show, and we'll get you some subs.
Oh man, that would be amazing.
Oh,
so Doug, I do not want to keep you here for long, but
Sure.
I want to get to anybody else who has anything that they want to ask. So Graventus, you've been as silent as a saint all this time, so I would love for, if there is anything that you would want to ask Doug, go for it.
He's a scroll of text.
Oh, there he is.
I just wanted to kind of jump off sort of what you were just talking about, the supporting the arts, things that you want to see. And I was just, connecting that with the idea of connecting with other people as well. Do you see a future of kind of this, I don't know if you want to call them like dissident artists, but kind of like almost a revival of these, almost guild-like, where these, artists kind of pull together.
100%, that's the future. In fact, I have a book right now. Earthworm Jim 2 is on Indiegogo. I've raised 150 grand. I've raised, and we're putting together these beautiful hardbound books. If you're interested in the Earthworm Jim story, back the book. Go to Indiegogo, look up Earthworm Jim 2. I will make you a killer book. The future is going to be unique, independent, crowd-funded everything. Like, I think it's going to be a pay-to-play thing where you literally vote with your wallet. If you're an animator, if you're a comic book creator, if you're a video game designer, start building your audience, because it's getting to a point now where it's like, do I really want to give money to X? Do I want to give money to Netflix, right? When they're showing the kid stripper show.
Oh, by the way, we had the guy who reviewed that show on our stream. It is our least, it has the most ratioed video, and it has 10,000. It has 10,000 views.
Yeah,
that was a bit of a shit show.
we'll take the traffic, but I'm only saying what I get to, what I offer is I know my audience so well now. It's maybe 3,000, it's 5,000 backers and growing, maybe up to 6,000 by the time it's done, but I know them all. I put on a show just for them. I'm making a leather book right now that is just the best book I've ever made. It's a tiny, tiny micro audience that I'm printing it for. I'm loyal to them, and I don't give a hell what any big studio thinks. I don't have to serve everyone now. I serve the people who pay me directly. So I think that's the future. I think you'll see more creativity that way. I hate seeing great animators and artists who go, I just dreamed of being, a storyboard artist, and they go and work on some insipid, stupid show that they don't believe in whatsoever. And a corporation has purchased their signature and says, take all your craft and you will make this piece of garbage for this audience. Instead of, go home, guys, you have the tools, create something small, get a small audience and monetize them and start building it, interact with them, love them, give them everything. I give my audience my very best work I've ever done is crowdfunding. I think every artist should be doing that, just like your dad's making magnets. I'd rather see them make it for them than Walmart. I'm just going like, go buy handcrafted magnets, quit buying mass-made garbage.
Yeah, couldn't agree.
And by the way, over here,
And Chris, create a show.
Oh yeah,
I want to see your signature, even if it's a 45-second short on YouTube. Make a 45-second short every month, and you invest in your own life and your own signature. And why God put you here as an artist is so you will show up instead of illustrating BurgerKing.com and the major studios, the mouse and everything, you know, whatever garbage they want to push out and socially reorganize and socially construct everyone into their preferred philosophy. I want to see your philosophy. I want to see the craziest, most scary, odd philosophy you can think of. Create a family and animate them. I would die to see that. I'd pay to see that.
Man, that is very inspiring. And by the way, what you have on the screen right now, this is a short film that I directed. The reason I say I directed is because I animated it along with a great team of people who I hired on board. I paid everybody as well, and we all worked as a very close team on this. This was back in, if you would believe it, 2007. It's that long ago. So this was back in SVA in a third year. It's called Only Love, and it's about this dictator and this rebel that's trying to assassinate him. So I'm going to send you the whole thing, Doug, later on. But the point here why I'm showing this is that this is something that I want to do for a long time. Back when I went to Blue Sky to see if maybe I can get a job there, Chris Wedge told me, like, Love, you're already, like, this is what you got to do, what you're doing right now with these shorts. And I think now the market, even though for animation, like we talked about with Chris, it's not as open right now for, you know, just the monetary incentive. At the same time, I think what I'm doing right now here with Break the Rules, growing the audience here that is simpatico to these kind of conversations. And also I think they'll be the same people who would be able to support me in the endeavor of creating more of these shorts and doing these series as this thing keeps growing. It is much easier right now to speak with people than animate something. Animating, as everybody knows, it takes a hell of a lot of time.
That's right.
So right now the goal is pretty much to bring great, interesting people around and to carve out a new culture while all the other cultures seem to be dying out or dissipating, or the only thing that they could hold on
to. And the audience doesn't want to pay for 2-hour movies, Lev. They want shorts. Most people have the attention span to watch like one cat video's length of material.
Yeah,
I want the animators to make stuff that's better than a cat video. No longer, just better.
Definitely.
So it may be 15 seconds, but it may be just a killer point that just lands. Set it up and land it. So work within your tiny, you know, talent set. Get a couple friends. Do it independently, because the future is going to be, the audience is shattered and getting split up and divided more and more. The pie, you know, you have the Scientology channel, the gay and lesbian channel, 50 ESPNs, Fox News, MSNBC, Newsmax, It's just getting totally chopped up to where your small social media audience can start to eclipse their audiences.
And by the way, we have Ivan
politics from PewDiePie than Fox.
We have Ivan Boyvin in the chat. He was one of the amazing animators on Only Love. His work is astounding, and I really hope, speaking of exactly what you were talking about, Doug, Ivan, if you're listening to this, I really want to work with you again. Give me some time to find the right project and the right time to do this project in. This is what it's all about. And Ivan is also, he's a Christian. He's living up in Canada, and he is just a great guy. Recently got married, so congratulations there. And we've been keeping in contact ever since. And I really feel like the things that you've talked about today, Doug, very inspiring. And we definitely have to seek out the people who we are going to vibe with and grow as a community. And
wake up and work for yourself. And because one day you're going to get fired, dude. You're unfireable if you find independent means and independent connection to your audience who loves you for what you make.
Absolutely.
I have a bulletproof, cancel-proof audience. They know exactly what I think and believe. None of them agree with me, but they're on board, and they made me cancel-proof. I am cancel-proof.
I think that why this is hard for so many artists is because artists by nature usually lean towards introvertism, shy, awkwardness. We were usually bullied and stuff like that. And that's why, you know, a lot of us, I mean, I even had this,
Yeah.
you know, goal of like, oh, I'm going to work in the company and I'm just going to climb the ladder and eventually, you know, I'll be secure or something like that. That's what I thought I would do. And thankfully it didn't pan out that way. But I think that, you know, for people who say like, oh, I don't have the people skills to, you know, to direct an audience and stuff. I'm like, it's a practice, really. Like, I mean, you look at guys like Frankie McDonald, you know, he's on Twitter every day. He's, you know, telling us about some storm going on in Nova Scotia or something. I think he has autism or something, and he predicts the weather or whatever. And he's got a freaking huge fan base. So it's like, look, if, you know, don't make any excuse about why you can't have, you know, an audience for what it is you do. There is an audience out there waiting for you. You just have to find a way to connect with them. And if you just keep, another thing that people always ask is,
Rebecca Sugar was always odd in a room. Jonan Vasquez, who did Invader Zim, is a buddy of mine, always really quiet, shut in types. I'm saying you don't have to be socially run the show. You do have to be talented.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you have to, I don't know, just there has to be something about you that they like. Like you don't have to like put your entire, you know, life on screen necessarily.
That's right.
But it helps if you can take a part of yourself and make that part of your brand. You know, you don't have to like be totally like you know, webcamming 24/7 or anything. In fact, I'd advise against that. But even like guys like a Fox and Space Show, his name,
Oh god,
AKA
that guy's
Frederick.
incredible.
Yeah, Frederick Fox. He's an old friend. Yeah, he just shows up and he just live streams for like 10 hours straight on Twitch as he's working. And, you know, a lot of people would think like, oh, but won't that bore people? And I'm like, it might bore some people, but it will excite the right people.
Right.
People that are as entertained by you as they are by your cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Or in Matt's case, puppets.
Yeah.
Definitely. Who doesn't love puppets? And we also have a comment from Jules, who unfortunately he could not be here today, but he has he wants to say the following. I want to ask if Doug plans to make a new cartoon or Earthworm Jim for the PS5, and if he ever needs new voices, you and me would love to be some. Yes. If you ever need new voices, I am not a voiceover artist, but I can be. And Jules, he is... You got to draw Jules one of these days. He is such a beautiful man. He is like, he's a model. Yeah.
Role model.
I love working with small voice talent. It's just, you know, it's a bigger risk for you to work with me than it is for me to work with you. Your career will be over. So be careful what you wish for, because I'll use you all day.
Oh, man. And as far as the first question, the Earthworm Jim cartoon or game for the PS5?
Yeah, I don't have the rights to Earthworm Jim the cartoon. I only have the rights to do these books, but I am planning. I have 3 independent small animation crews around the world that we're going to be doing some small pilots we're working on.
Oh, man.
So,
Nice.
and that includes Vic Mignogna doing voice. I know a lot of voice actors who've been canceled, so they're kind of safe. So
I know that's the thing. It's like the more creators get canceled, it's like they keep pushing more and more people out into the wastelands. It's like eventually they're going to start forming their own barbarian tribe.
Oh, they unleash your creativity. Once they can't take anything more from you, then you're truly free. I am one of the few truly independent free artists. I do not give an F what people think.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a good quality to have. And I think that this is pretty much it. Any last comments?
Can I ask?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask one more thing. It's a bit it's a little bit off topic, but I guess it does kind of go in line with this idea of creators that aren't kind of beholden to anyone but themselves and their fan bases. I think you see a lot of the guys that came out of Newgrounds especially succeeding in this. We just saw Psychic Pebbles with his pilot on Adult Swim for Smiling Friends. It was fantastic. Yep. We see the Oni Plays guys. They're doing fantastic in the side projects they're working on, as well as their Let's Plays. And on that note, I know, Doug, you reached out to Chris at one point and asked if you could get on his show with Ding Dong and Julian to play through Earthworm Jim. Sure. Any status update on that by chance?
Nothing. I put invitations out and talk to people all the time, and then they just don't respond. So I figure, either they're busy or they're showing me the soft door out. It's okay. It's just more about always putting feelers out for more opportunities, always reaching out to bigger audiences, always reaching out to strong partners to see who you can, who is willing to work with you and have fun together and create. I've never felt more creative. Like this year, I committed to do a fine art show here in Tennessee. I want to do some more drawings. I just want to draw, you know, not a story or anything, just do some pieces. And that's where I came from, was fine art. That's what's great about America is, at least right now, you can't get in trouble for launching an Indiegogo campaign, even if it fails. You can't get in trouble for launching a cartoon that didn't work. So there's no downside. There's all kinds of upside, you know. So you worked on something for yourself and just no one wanted to see it. Big deal, you know. And there's no security in the arts. But I'm a father of 4. I've been married 30 years. I'm the sole provider for my family, and there's no security, but I've managed to pull it off for 30 years.
Excellent.
It's possible.
Really fantastic.
Yeah, that's inspiring.
So,
Especially as like into stuff like this.
I made more money on my independent Earthworm Jim comic than I did on the original video game that made $60 million.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So it's weird. As creative and as fun as that was, the book is technically better for me because I went independent with it.
I want to ask one final question, actually, about the character style of Earthworm Jim. Where exactly did that originate from? Not drawing things completely realistically, where you would have certain frames that would be flatter. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
How did that come about?
There's a lot of influences there, but a lot of Warner Brothers. Tex Avery would do it. The director, Terry Gilliam, would do it in his animation, you know, the cutouts of like the cow, you know, just like it looks like a photo of a cow, just like they're moving. But mostly Warner Brothers, Tex Avery. John Cristofalucci was a huge influence on me also in the Ren and Stimpy days, which would be a big influence on us in the early 90s. It's just kind of draw what you like. Earthworm Jim is about what I like. And Bigfoot Bill is my other campaign that I do. I'm just really into it, having fun. Never been more creatively fulfilled and happier on that end. And it also helps me get through a depressing culture. Like culture is just like, it can be a vacuous hole, but my art, it just really sustains me. These are the good times if you're an independent artist. When I was a kid, we did not have an internet. You have a worldwide free network that will broadcast your, it used to be if you wanted to get it seen, you couldn't even get it seen. There was no network. If the networks turn you down, you were dead. Now, if you make something, you have YouTube, you have Twitch, you have all these outlets now. These are the glory days. The digital tools that you have access to create this stuff, professional record quality, these are worth millions of dollars, and they're free now.
That is definitely the silver
it's a
lining.
sin. It is literally a sin of neglect if you don't use it and you're an artist. You have no excuse.
Well, books as well. Like, one thing that I found is that, and I think Jules is just about to come on. He has finished dinner with his family, so I think he is just about to come on. I don't want to keep you for too long, Doug, and I already appreciate the fact that you are here with us. I really just wanted Jules, he is a huge fan of yours. He is a huge Earthworm Jim fan, and I would love for him to say something. But before that, I also just wanted to say that when it comes to all these different animators out there, like I got to meet, back when I toured Cartoon Network Studios, I got to meet Craig McCracken for a bit. I got to meet Joe Murray, you know, and they were all really very interesting people. And I don't know what the next generation, like the generation that Rebecca's around right now, how exactly this is all going to go. Are there people who are starving, creatively speaking, like they want to express themselves in other ways, and they're just hampered by this particular ideology? And anything you would recommend for people who are still in there? Can we have an exodus of those people out of the studios into more of this independent circuit?
Yeah, certainly if you disagree with wokeness, you have no business being in a studio. Sooner or later, they'll flush you out. They'll make you sign the affidavit. But my big thing is, like, I think people are looking for excuses to blame everyone else for their own lack of production. You know, I want to say, it's too hard, it's too scary, no one will like it. whatever. If I can sit here and just blame everyone else, then I can sit here in peace and not do anything and play Xbox all day and eat the soy. Instead, I would say I would like to unleash and wake up a kind of work ethic that was in the artists from the past, who are just workaholics all day, all night, that bring out the kind of craftsmanship in your dad's magnets, and not the kind of pop junk that you see where someone barely puts any thought or effort into it and tries to float it up there. I'm saying if you're an artist, then you devote your life to it, because being an artist is more like a marriage. You marry it. And just because things go bad, you don't divorce it and throw it away. You try and save it, and it's a romance, and you love art, and you are an artist. I can't take the artist out of you. I'm saying, I'm telling people to unleash it. I'm saying to lean into it and give it wings and give it strength and power. And that might mean you're going to live in a cardboard box for a while, or you have to go get a full-time job doing something else, and you work on your own stuff on your own, but do work for yourself at some point.
Yeah.
There's guys that just animate for like 30 years on other people's projects. They're animators. They see you as professional illustrators.
Yeah.
Like you are a cog.
Yeah. I would definitely say, like, I always tell people, you have to be doing what you love so much that you would be willing to dig ditches as your day job, so that you get to work on whatever that creative project is. Because if you get home from your wagey job or whatever it is you do to, keep a roof over your head, and you are not excited to work on that project, then that's probably not the project you're really meant to work on. Like, I know for me, like, I have to make up excuses for myself to not work on my graphic novel, because as soon as as soon as I've taken care of my food, work, and other, required human things, like, this is the only thing I want to do. Like, my friends have to kind of like peel me away from my workstation. Like,
I'm so excited to get to this art table in the morning. There's been times where I've been as excited at coming to this art table to draw a page as I am to go to bed with my wife. You just go, I can't wait. There's a aching and a longing.
It's like it's like that quote from Pumping Iron, where Arnold Schwarzenegger describes lifting as, "It's better than coming.
It's better. It's like coming, the rip on it could come."
And by the way, we have Jules here, but also before Jules, I just want to quickly spotlight over here. This is some of my dad's artwork. So not only does it make magnets, but look at this magnificent. I can show my dad's artwork all day. Look at this beautiful wolf man over here with the sickle.
It's awesome.
And this wooden rooster handcrafted.
Oh, it's
and
so
this
cool.
over here, this guy is Paul I of Russia. This is Catherine the Great's weird-looking son. So he does a lot of these very beautiful.
That's one that she had with the horse.
I love his
God!
Before the rope broke.
Oh no,
Oh,
Mr.
That is
Hands!
awesome.
Mr. Hands alert! Mr. Hands alert! Okay,
Oh, no.
okay, let's go to Jules.
Guys, I know it's coming in at the end. It's hard to know how to. I don't want to just interject myself, but Earthworm Jim is one of my favorite. It was like a cartoon for me. I got to play the video game. It was Earthworm Jim 2 on the PlayStation. And it was just his humor spoke to me in a way that, like, I guess it was like Earthworm Jim and Garfield, and my relationship with the art was very formative. And so it's kind of very surreal to now I'm in a chat. It's pandemic. It's like all these different artists and people, many I've spoken to many times. And I'm just like, I don't know where to begin. But
yeah. Well, it's nice to meet you. I love meeting the guys where I got them when they were kids. It's a weird thing, because you create it and you're just kind of like, hi, I'm being dumb. I'm having fun. And then, 27 years later, some guy is just falling apart on you. I've had fans cry, but what's happening is the game that they played, I'm taking them back to when they were 5 or 12. And the feeling starts erupting from their mind. And the same thing happened to me when I met, like Art Clokey, the creator of Gumby. That's what I saw when I was 4 years old. And a little piece of beauty and truth blew up in my head, and I almost started crying when I met him, because it took me back to when I was 5, and I started becoming an artist, you know. So I hear it just from hundreds of fans like you that it wasn't intentional, but I get that it goes very deep in your person and in ideas that you have and in styles that you have. Earthworm Jim came from the people before me. So people who informed me. And then I get to participate as one of the influences that got into your head and influenced you and maybe made you smile, made you laugh, or you go, that's what I want to do something like that. You can't copy me and do that. You have to do your version. I couldn't copy the people behind me. I would just take their influences and bring in Warner Brothers and Terry Gilliam and They Might Be Giants. And, you know, all these things would come in and Weird Al, and you end up creating this thing that is a sub creation of its own. And you will, I want to unleash you. If you like what I did for you, I hope you do something that some other 4-year-old's going to play and go, I read this book when I was 5 and I just studied it. And this is what Jules gave me. It might even be an encouraging word. There's stuff that I'll never forget from people who influenced me early on. It's a pure time when you're just not as jaded. So we all want to go back there. It's so influential on us because kind of kindness to a stranger in the audience who's younger is an incredible blessing to give to someone and to receive. And then I think you have to pass that on with what you make. That's what my Earthworm Jim fans owe me, is go give it to someone else, because I didn't invent this.
Really beautiful. Wow. Your work was so optimistic in terms of, like, I never liked Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes. Like, there's just like I always thought there was kind of like a deep-seated pessimism in them, or like a cynicism in them, and sort of like I feel like Steven Spielberg had some stuff that was like Freakazoid, or you have like certain they're like silly heroes, but that doesn't mean they're not serious either, right?
Because the world's still going to be destroyed, but that's the meek will inherit the world. I got that from the Bible, is the idea. I always give my goofballs just the power of a God. I'm like, why does that have to be this? You know, I'm not, obviously, look at me, I'm 6'8". I never wanted my creations to be this testosterone, 5 foot tall, good looking Tom Cruise. It was the 6'8" guy that tried to ask the cheerleader to the prom is who Earthworm Jim is.
And
He's
that
me.
cheerleader was Princess what's her name, I guess, because she is really
that
beautiful.
You better believe it. There's a reason why, the unattainable beauty, and she's my muse. You know, I feel like my art sucks, and I'll never be able to touch the perfection that I'm reaching for, that ideal. So she's forever outside of Jim's grasp. And I think there's something romantic and wonderful about that. He's having a good time. He's not sitting there sour in the corner. You can't stop that guy. You cannot stop me.
And by the way, one other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot about is back in 2003, my very first animation class, I did an animation called Kendall the Noble, because there was a kid in my class named Kendall, and I figured Kendall, it sounds like Kendall. Why don't I make an animation about Mayor Bloomberg's candle that comes to life and gets thrown out, and while in the trash, he discovers that he has superpowers, and he also gets a similar suit like Earthworm Jim, but instead of a worm, it's a candle.
It's a candle.
Yes,
I love it.
Candle, Kendall the Noble. And there's like Lucifer.
That's yours.
Yeah, Lucifer
Copyright
is also
it.
in there.
Make a book.
Kendall the Noble. Oh, there we go. So, Jules, any final questions? We're going to be wrapping it up, but... Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You got to unmute yourself. Everybody subscribe. Okay.
Everybody subscribe.
Yes,
Real quick.
sorry.
I didn't mean to cut off Jules. My battery is about to die, so I'm probably going to cut out any second. So thank you guys for having me on and everything. Doug, it was great getting to talk to you. If you guys don't mind, could I ask one last question before this kind of cuts out?
Go for it.
How long?
Yeah, Chris.
Because Doug was talking about how it's so important to create your own stuff, and I think that's really important for artists. Any artists listening to this that have their ideas that they want to create. I was one of those people that was a cog working for the longest time on other people's projects and not doing my own thing. And that's something I've been the past probably 2-3 years, is trying to get more into team building and kind of find a group of people. Is there any, because you've imparted so much knowledge already, but my one question I want to end on is, do you have any advice either like things to avoid or things to try to do when building a team of just small individuals to try and work on one ideal?
The smaller the team, the better, because every person is a risk. You know, the one guy's going to say, look, I can't make it anymore, guys. I can't afford it. I got to go take a job. Or I don't like you. Got to go. Work ethic sucks, whatever. If you can, I can do anything with 2 killer art partners, anything. So I'd rather go for potency than size.
Gotcha.
So when you team up, find like-minded guys, or everyone takes turn creating. Your creation is going to be this month. My creation is going to be the next month. And his creation is going to be the 3rd month. We're each going to do our creation. We're going to work on each other's things to pound it out. You know, something that's fair. So that's number one. And then also avoid the idea that you're just going to make a ton of money on it, because you might, but we all know life isn't fair. And sometimes you make the greatest thing in the world and no one wants it. You know, the top selling music right now, the most heard music in the entire history of music is K-pop. So that doesn't make it the best, but more people have heard K-pop than the Beatles or Elvis or classical music. So I'm only saying, and Moby Dick didn't sell out of its first print run in the life of Melville. He died thinking Moby Dick, which is now considered the greatest American novel ever. He died thinking it was a failure. So that's why you have to get your core down of what you know is true. And I'm not saying lose money, because I want you guys all to get rich, you know, because one day I'd looked at Penn Ward's Adventure Time and I'd go, oh, that'll never fly. I saw SpongeBob pilot and I go, what the hell's this? You know,
Fred
Rebecca
Seibert
Shears doing Steven Universe. I go, yeah, little lunatic girl, go make your show, you know,
By
and
the
then
way,
it becomes this.
Fred Seibert
You never
said the
know.
same thing about Adventure Time. Fred Seibert was not about it, and then his friend said, come on, give it a chance.
I made 2 shorts with Fred Seibert in the same batch as Penn Ward made Adventure Time. I'm a seasoned animation pro, and he kicked my ass all over the planet.
Wow.
Hats off to that guy, because I just go, he invented a new thing. No one did what he did. Adventure Time is one of the biggest leaps in bizarre storytelling animation in television history. Like Simpsons weird, South Park weird, Adventure Time.
It's great when you have those things that come in and just, it injects new life into stuff, and it's going to breed more inspiring work in the future for the people that grew up on that too. So it's
Penn
great.
didn't sell out for anybody. And I remember Fred Seibert, when we would go in and pitch to him, he'd go, I don't know it's good or bad. Go make your short. I'd go, holy cow. I've never had complete free reign. He said, go, Doug. What are you afraid of? He said the same thing to Penn. I don't know what's good or bad. Let's go.
He's an interesting cat.
You have to really be willing to be that guy, you know, playing guitar to an empty bar and just loving what you're doing, because if people notice that you're absolutely in love with what it is you're doing, they're going to stop and kind of like lean over your shoulder and be like, I want to see why this guy is so, why is this guy showing up every day to live stream, to work on his thing, even though there's only 3 people in the chat? And eventually it will build up. I don't know how long it might take. You could hit one of those overnight viral things. Don't count on it. Or it could just be like a slow ruck march. That's what I always tell it. Like, it's not a sprint, it's a ruck march. You have to, you know, take it just one step at a time and just love what you're doing in the meanwhile. And then eventually, if you stay consistent, I swear, if you just show up with the content, something is going to happen. There are so many like mediocre storytellers and artists out there who have huge followings because they just kept showing up when better artists did not.
And make something, finish something, put it out there. I'm not good because I created Earthworm Jim. I created thousands of things before him. But when that door opened, I had the killer idea. I created it that day, or 3 days before. So be in the discipline of creating, and by all means produce and get that thing finished and get it out. You have to produce.
Right.
You can't sit there and leave it in your sketchbook and in your head, your idea. People talk about all these ideas all day. I'm working on a project, I'm working on a thing, I'm working on a book. Well, really, where is it? 5 years later, I'm working on this other project, this other thing, this other book. Really, where is it?
That's all of Los Angeles. At least that's what Eggy says when he went there. Everybody was all about that.
Yeah.
If you don't produce it, you're not an animator. If you don't make art, you're not an animator. You're a person who talks about art. That's a critic. If you're an artist, make art.
I like that.
This is very
You are
inspiring.
what you do, not what you tell me about.
Right. I love that. Thank you so much for everything. I guess that's probably a good time for me to sign out before this just cuts out.
Yeah, and I got to jump too.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank you,
for
Chris.
everything.
Thanks, Chris. God bless you.
See you, Chris.
Yeah.
Take care.
Have a good one.
And
Thank you,
Chris.
That was amazing. Wow. I can't wait to go back and watch this again.
This is
thanks,
great.
Jules. Thanks for popping in. It's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm so happy that you like that game and you like that character. Get Earthworm Jim on Indiegogo. My book. I'm telling the epic story. We're on book 2.
Let me put the link to it right here. So it's the fish one. That's the second one. What is going on with that fish?
Fight the Fish. We have a leather edition, but mostly just get the book 1 and 2 if you want to get caught up. It's $50.
Yeah. I think there's only like a week left on the campaign too, so don't sleep
Week left
on
in the
it.
campaign. I will send you a killer. The books I make are just these beautiful hardbound gold. They have a gold gilded edges. They've got gold foil on the cover.
Oh, wow.
They're honking 160 page epics. So
let me spotlight the screen for the audience. Can you show one more time, please?
Okay. Here, this is the Bigfoot Bill book that we did, but you can see there's 2 colors of foil on the cover. There's embossing, debossing, UV foil, big, beautiful hardbound with gold gilded edges, full color art, 160 page standalone story, cool end sheets by Alejandro Mirabal.
Woo.
I'm just saying these things, and this is a $25 donation on Indiegogo. And this book it holds its value on eBay. So get caught up. Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 is open right now. Look up Earthworm Jim 2 on Indiegogo.
Excellent. Well, Doug, thank you so much. This has been a great pleasure. We are going to end the stream, but guys, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. We are so close. We are at 1,988, and we are going to be at 2,000 by no time, thanks to your help and your support. We've been doing the stream since May, and go to patreon.com so that we are going to keep on growing. So here are some magnets. Once again, my father, Alexander Polyakov's absolutely exquisite magnets with the great wooden texture. My father is embodying the Russian soul with these beautiful pieces. So get it. And also, if you become a $30 patron, you are going to get Giovanni Panacchetti, Bella, his amazing prints right over here. You can see the process of creating these works of art from the TFW No GF series. Get them, and you will be very happy in your life. And we love you all, and we thank you so much for watching. I am going to end this stream right now. Clicking the button. Mwah! Good night, everybody.